Part 7. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 64. Chapter 63, Lotford Island. Luo Guang took his things and followed Hank, the god of death, onto a pitch-black helicopter and flew away from Paris. Luo Guang asked Hank next to him, "How did this helicopter enter Paris? And the sound of this helicopter is too quiet. I didn't hear the helicopter's movement before you broke the door. It came through formal procedures. And the hotel you are staying in is also one of the company's assets," Hank briefly explained. "As for this helicopter, it was newly developed by the equipment department. I don't know the specific principle, but this kind of silent the ability requires the helicopter to fly at a relatively slow speed to take effect. No wonder it's so loud now." The scenery outside the helicopter door receded faster and faster, and the noise of the helicopter became louder and louder. "Speaking of which, it's too rude of you to break in like this," Luo Guang said, dissatisfied. "I'm sorry, Death," Hank apologized straightforwardly. "This is part of our combat training, and it is also a test for you." Hank, the god of death, paused and said, "According to our intelligence, Luo Guang, you should not be good at fighting. That's why we can confidently conduct raid training without fear of you hitting us with your gun. After all, you have the right time, place, and people." Luo Guang understood that if his speed hadn't far exceeded the prediction of the person who came in from the balcony, he might not have been able to deal with the enemies coming in from the balcony in the first time, and would have been trapped in a two-sided attack. But what Hank expected most was that the smoke bomb did not restrict Luo Guang's movements at all. Even such thick smoke did not cause Luo Guang to cough that exposed his position. At this time, Hank thought about the actions he led and seemed to always encounter such unexpected situations, including William, who was injected with the G virus and turned into a monster, and Luo Guang, who would not be coughed by the smoke. "Where is Lotford Island?" Luo Guang asked curiously. After Hank recalled Luo Guang's intelligence level, he said, "It's on a certain ocean in the southern hemisphere. But I don't know the specific location. We all take the plane at the airport and then drive automatically through the set route." "Going to? Then what is the mission this time?" Although Wang Wei said it once, Luo Guang wanted to know more precise information. "Conduct anti-biochemical weapons training with us, and then we need you to go on a confidential mission with us. The specific content of the mission will only be told to us on the day the mission starts, so you don't need to ask us about this issue." Hank thought Luo Guang was vaccinated in advance because of his identity as an intelligence agent. "By the way, this time we go to Lotford Island, we also have another mission, which is to transport a biological and chemical weapon to the island, so Luo Guang, don't go to the aircraft cargo area." Hank made it clear to avoid conflicts in the future. "The most important thing is that if the cargo accidentally escapes due to a conflict between the two parties in the sky, it will be in big trouble." "Understood." Luo Guang nodded, indicating that he would not look for trouble. Soon, Luo Guang, Hank and other USS arrived at a small airport in the suburbs. It looked deserted. Only a plane with the umbrella logo was parked quietly on the runway. There were a few airports next to the plane. Employees of Breer Company are directing the loading of goods. The helicopter landed, and after Luo Guang and others boarded the plane, Hank directed his men to supervise the loading of the goods. "What does U.S.S. anti-biochemical training include?" In fact, what Luo Guang wanted to learn more was the skills to fight humans, and he was wondering if he could learn some moves from Hank, a big boss. "Luo Guang, you are a survivor of Raccoon City, so the specific situation needs to be tested because this anti-biochemical training will not last long." Death Hank decided to conduct targeted training for Luo Guang. "Speaking of which, Hank, are you also a survivor of Raccoon City?" Luo Guang's words shocked Hank. Only a few senior people at Umbrella Company knew about the task of snatching the G virus, and this was obviously not something Luo Guang should know. "How do you know?" Hank's tone was very solemn, which made Luo Guang understand that there was something wrong with what he just said. Luo Guang explained, because I met people from the USS in Raccoon City, and I also heard something from others. A lone USS killed an Umbrella researcher at Raccoon City University. That's why I say this based on your title, Hank. Greg Mueller, he is a traitor to the company. I received this task to deal with the traitor, so I went to Raccoon City University. Hank was originally going to evacuate from the Raccoon City Police Department, but he was temporarily assigned to this task. New mission, so the evacuation of Raccoon City was postponed. After Luo Guang mentioned this, Hank recalled the umbrella company mentioned by Greg Mueller. When Hank, the god of death, is performing a mission, he is a heavy and calm person, but this does not mean that he has no emotions. He is a robot that only knows how to perform missions, or a loyal hound of Umbrella Company. Before eavesdropping on Greg Mueller, Death Hank had no idea that Umbrella had done so many dirty things. During the mission to eliminate Greg Mueller, Hank, the god of death, experienced psychological fluctuations for the first time during the mission. In the end, as if to maintain Umbrella's image in his mind, Hank shot and killed Greg Mueller, then fled Raccoon City University. This is also the reason why Luo Guang and others did not see the USS later, and Carlos and others who were present were not attacked by it. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content later. So that's the reason Hank also understood why Luo Guang speculated that he was in Raccoon City. To be honest, when I was in Raccoon City, I felt that those zombies were not difficult to deal with as long as they did not surround me. On the contrary, those zombie dogs and lickers with faster speeds were more difficult to deal with. Luo Guang discussed antibiochemical issues with Hank while waiting for the plane to take off. The other U.S.S. who were still in the cabin pricked up their ears. They had not experienced a large-scale biochemical crisis like Raccoon City, so they also wanted to hear the experience of the two Raccoon City survivors. Yes, those zombies are easy to deal with. In order to escape from the sewer quickly, I often push and pull the zombies blocking the road to the side, and then pass quickly, so as not to waste bullets and save time. Hank is like those speed runners, and he avoids the zombies that are not blocking the road. I'm not in a hurry, but I was blocked by zombies in a dead end once, and I was forced to use a knife and a pistol to clear the way. Luo Guang was talking about what happened in the Raccoon City Police Department. Because Luo Guang mentioned the pistol, others, including Hank, were not surprised that Luo Guang escaped unscathed. Then Luo Guang, your psychological quality is still very good. In Hank's view, psychological quality also played a big role in his ability to break out of the siege in that situation. After all, unlike himself who entered Raccoon City fully armed, Luo Guang's number of bullets should not be too sufficient at that time, and any waste of a bullet may cause Luo Guang to be unable to break out of the siege in the end. While the few people were chatting, the cargo had been loaded, and the USS that went to check also came back to report the situation and confirmed that everything was fine. After the preparations were completed, the Umbrella Company's plane began to take off for Rothford Island. It took nearly half a day for the plane to finally land on Rothford Island. Luo Guang followed Hank and handed the cargo in the warehouse, that is, a frozen capsule, to the person in charge of Rothford Island. This is the receipt and report. Because the flight time was very long, Hank used the time on the plane to write the report, and only needed to fill in the handover time when handing over. Because the content of the report was not confidential, and Luo Guang's confidentiality level was high enough, Hank did not stop Luo Guang when he looked at the report. Luo Guang even saw Hank's complaints about Alfred, the director of the Rothford Island Research Institute, and Hank's training on this island in the report. After the handover, Luo Guang said to Hank, "So you were trained in the military training center on this island before?" Yes, at that time, it was still managed by Alexander Ashford, the son of Edward Ashford, one of the founders of the company. In fact, it was he who first proposed to form antibiochemical forces such as the USS. Hank recalled the past days, but the teammates who had accompanied him were no longer around. There is no time to lose, let's start training quickly. The delivery mission has been completed, so Hank immediately called everyone to the military training center on the island to start a 10-day anti-biochemical exercise. There are a small number of zombies on the island, but they are good opponents for the USS newcomers who have not experienced the biochemical crisis. At least they can help the newcomers overcome their fear of these terrifying creatures that are not afraid of bullets as soon as possible. Luo Guang has never cooperated with the USS, so in order to prevent accidental injuries, Luo Guang and Hank stood on the high platform at this time, watching the USS newcomers advancing in the big house built below. I think it's still feasible to use the tactics used against humans to deal with zombies. Luo Guang saw that the USS below was advancing very quickly. Although they were a little confused at first when they saw those zombies who were fine after being shot several times, they were not real recruits after all, but veterans promoted from the UBCS, so they quickly adjusted their mentality and aimed at the zombies' heads and shot. Yes, the only difficulty is to ensure the hit rate on the head. Hank nodded and said, so this anti-biochemical training is more about letting his men overcome the fear of various biochemical weapons as soon as possible. As for Luo Guang, he was quickly recognized by Hank when he entered the field for training before the new recruits of the USS. Because there were no other B.O.W.S on Lotford Island at this time, Luo Guang did not need to continue to participate in this training. However, Luo Guang took the initiative to mention that he still lacked in tactics and combat skills, especially that he sometimes habitually treated flexible humans as zombies, so Hank, who heard this, planned to conduct special training for Luo Guang in the next few days. In a blink of an eye, it was already the third day since Luo Guang came to the island. On this day, Hank and Luo Guang received a message and a new mission. Paris Research Institute was attacked. This Paris Research Institute was not the one Luo Guang went to, but a trap set by the European branch to attract Chris Redfield, a former STARS member who had been tracking him. However, according to intelligence, the person who was attracted was not Chris Redfield, but his sister Claire Redfield. This Claire sneaked into the fake Paris Institute alone to find her brother's trace, which was equivalent to stepping into the trap prepared by Umbrella. Because the opponent was only one person, the European branch gave the mercenaries in the fake institute an order to capture Claire alive, in order to lure Chris to show up. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. However, Claire's fighting ability surprised the people in the European branch. Because according to Umbrella's investigation report on Claire, the opponent was just a college student with certain fighting ability, but she fought her way out of the siege of mercenaries, and was finally subdued because the bullets in her pistol were exhausted. Along with this information, there was also a new task. The senior management of Umbrella specifically asked Hank to go back in advance and escort Claire to Lotford Island a few days later. Didn't they say it was used to lure Chris to show up? Why did they let Hank transport people here? Did they deliberately lure Chris to this island? Luo Guang had many questions in his mind. Luo, you also have a mission, come back with me. You are responsible for investigating Claire and getting the whereabouts of other STARS members from that woman, while I will set traps at the interrogation site. Hank continued to look down and found that there was also a mission for Luo Guang. I'm going to investigate, Luo Guang asked curiously, there are also senior intelligence officers in the European branch, right? I don't know, but I think since you are asked to investigate, the other intelligence officers probably have something to do. Hearing Hank's words, Luo Guang thought of Wang Wei, who also separated from him because of a temporary mission. I understand. Luo Guang nodded and said, do the others have to follow? They just need to continue training, and the other party only pointed out you and me. Hank shook his head and said, they still have to hurry up to train. I have a bad feeling about the confidential mission later. I understand. It's a troubled time, let them be careful according to the plot of the game. This isolated island will be attacked by biological and chemical weapons and air raids by the troops led by Wesker, so Luo Guang will remind them. Luo Guang, have you received any information? Hank knew that Luo Guang brought a communication device to the island, so he asked this question. By the way, Luo Guang's mobile phone was the only one with a signal from the X organization on Rothford Island. There is no exact information, but it seems that someone is planning to launch an attack here. According to the plot of the game, the Sunglasses Man Wesker will launch a sneak attack on Rothford Island, so Luo Guang reminded him to let the people here bring some trouble to Wesker. Well, I will tell the newcomers and the security captain here. Hank nodded. Although Luo Guang's information was very vague, it was better to be cautious, rather than thinking that the enemy could not find this place because the location of the island was secret. After Luo Guang waited for Hank to explain the matter, he followed Hank and boarded the plane back to Paris. Meow, I plan to make a character chapter recently. After all, there will be more and more characters appearing. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 65. First Red Field. Because Hank the Grim Reaper had to go to the U.S.SS equipment department, Luo Guang separated from Hank the Grim Reaper shortly after returning to Paris. Then Luo Guang got on the car of the European branch and went to the place where Claire Redfield was imprisoned. This place of imprisonment was in a forest in the suburbs, and it was very quiet and sparsely populated. Hello, Senior Intelligence Officer. The people in the European branch were very happy to see Luo Guang coming, and said, that woman is really stubborn. She either keeps her mouth shut or swears. It's really annoying. It's a pity that the higher UPS don't allow us to torture her. They said that this woman has other uses, otherwise she would definitely be severely tortured. You don't have a girlfriend, do you? Luo Guang saw that the other party was so unsympathetic, and said directly. This has nothing to do with the interrogation of that woman, right? The other party was hit by Luo Guang's words. Yes, it means you don't know how to coax women. Sometimes they are particularly stubborn. At this time, no matter how you force them, it will be useless. Instead, it will arouse their resistance. Luo Guang said the knowledge he learned from street literature. I see, no wonder no matter how we use words to stimulate the other party is unwilling to cooperate obediently. But the other party looked at Luo Guang with admiration as if he suddenly realized something. This is it. The other party took Luo Guang to the interrogation room and said, I'll wait for your good news in the next room. Yet although Luo Guang looked calm, he was actually unsure in his heart. To be honest, at this time, he wanted to rescue Claire more and let Chris, the god of war in the biochemical crisis, owe him a favor. Luo Guang pushed the door in. There were 2 chairs in the interrogation room. Claire sat on one of the iron chairs fixed to the ground, with her limbs and neck locked on the chair. Claire looked a little mentally exhausted because of the endless interrogation for days, but her clothes were neatly dressed, there were no urinals around her, and her pants were not wet. It seemed that the previous interrogators did not touch her. Claire saw Luo Guang, a man she had never seen before, come in. Claire looked up and glared at Luo Guang. Hey, that coward dare not come again? Or is Umbrella finally going to torture me? Luo Guang did not answer immediately, but sat on another wooden chair in the interrogation room, and then slowly said, the coward you are talking about is watching next door now. I think he should be very excited when he hears your screams. You Umbrella people are all mentally abnormal. Claire cursed angrily, not knowing what she thought of. Luo Guang deliberately used misleading words and said, it's just a joke. The company is not going to torture you for the time being. After all, your body will be used for other purposes in the future. We will clean you up in a few days and then offer you to the top management of Umbrella. Claire was so angry that her face turned red. 3 times is the limit. Luo Guang shrugged his shoulders, put away the smile on his face, and said, I'm just joking. Okay, No more joking. Claire, you sneaked into the Paris Institute to find your brother, right? Claire said that she didn't want to talk and wanted to exercise her right to remain silent. It doesn't matter if you don't respond, which means that you don't know the whereabouts of other STARS members. Luo Guang's words were firm. Since you all know, why do you keep asking me about their whereabouts? I've said I don't know where they are, Claire said angrily after hearing Luo Guang's words. The European branch staff in the next room couldn't help but applaud Luo Guang. Claire's words were the longest words he had ever said. More importantly, he saw that Claire had the intention to talk to Luo Guang. Because they don't know, only I know this, Luo Guang said, and you know that interrogations are like this. If you reveal it too quickly, they won't believe it, especially if you are not tortured. So what are you going to do by arresting me? Claire wanted to get some information from Luo Guang. Luo Guang also understood Claire's idea, but he didn't mind telling her, so he said, leak the information about your arrest and attract your brother. You bastards, Claire cursed when she heard that Luo Guang was going to deal with her brother. Calm down, Claire. Luo Guang felt that Claire was very tired because of the continuous interrogation for days, so she became irritable, and continued, I know you are very tired now, but your anger will not help the current situation. When Luo Guang said this, his tone was very calm, and a drowsy pheromone was also stimulated by Luo Guang. This was a new skill that Luo Guang learned in the Chicago Institute when he was on vacation in Chicago. Now Luo Guang can produce more than just blood plague pheromones. Because it was the first time to use it, Luo Guang didn't control the amount of this pheromone very well. Claire didn't even reply, and her eyelids began to close uncontrollably. After a while, she fell into a deep sleep. Seeing this, Luo Guang left the interrogation room. At this stage, all he could do was to let Claire fall asleep and recover her spirit and physical strength as soon as possible. As for whether she would have cervical pain tomorrow if she slept sitting up, that was not within Luo Guang's consideration. Agent Luo, is your ability to make people sleep hypnotic? The people in the European branch were surprised by Luo Guang's skill, and then asked in confusion, but why do you want this woman to rest and recover her spirit? This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. How do you communicate with a person who gets angry easily and explodes at the slightest moment when you can't use torture? Luo Guang naturally did this when he was ready to speak. He ignored the other party's first question and said mysteriously, now because she is tired, this woman is too irritable. She can only stay calm after the other party has slept enough. At this time, she will choose to lie instead, and other methods intended to deceive us. Then we can discover problems from the conversation, and even do the opposite to get the other party's real information. The people in the European branch successfully figured out the reason why Luo Guang did this. Yes, as long as the other party starts talking, we can get information whether it is true or false. Yes, seeing that the other party was so polite, Luo Guang quickly nodded in agreement with the other party's statement, and then asked, how long will this woman stay here? Well, I think it should be about 2 or 3 days. The people from the European branch thought for a while and said, actually, the higher authorities are not asking us to find out anything from the interrogation. They are just putting a bait here to do nothing. It just seems a bit wasteful. Is this the place to ambush the STARS who came to rescue? This place is located in the suburbs, just right for a big battle, so Luo Guang asked one more question. That's right, there are already UBCS professionals guarding this place, and they have specially invited elite USS personnel to come here. The other party told Luo Guang some things he knew, and then said, Agent Luo, about your arrival. The security team also knows and enters your ID card information in advance, so you don't have to worry about being shot in the dark. Understood. Luo Guang nodded, and then led him to the room where he would stay tonight. The next morning, Luo Guang had enough to eat and drink, and went to visit Claire with 2 butter buns. Luo Guang handed the butter bread and water to Claire's mouth. What do you mean? Claire finally regained her energy after getting enough sleep, and looked at Luo Guang with contempt. Eat, you're hungry too. Luo Guang's words were concise and clear. I won't eat from you lackeys. You have such a tough mouth, but your body is still very honest. Luo Guang heard Claire trying to cover up the sound of her stomach drumming with her voice. Damn it, but Claire was so hungry that she bit into the brioche bread in front of her as if it were a piece of cake. After giving Claire a few bites, Luo Guang handed over the water again. Drink some water, your lips are dry. Thank you. After Claire had finished eating and drinking, she reluctantly thanked Luo Guang. Now that we've eaten and drank enough, let's have a good talk. Luo Guang sat back on the wooden chair and asked, do you and your brother have contact information? Or do you have a secret code or something like that? No, if there were, I wouldn't have to sneak into the Paris Research Institute to look for clues about my brother. This time Claire's words were not as rushed as before. Why do you think the Paris Institute has information about your brother? Luo Guang asked. Claire glanced at Luo Guang and said, you ask me? I received intelligence that my brother discovered your Paris Research Institute, so he went there. Luo Guang asked people from the European branch to understand the situation last night, so he knew these things, but he wanted Claire to tell him now. First of all, this is not important information. Luo Guang also knows that Claire will most likely not obtain any substantive information after going to the fake research institute, so he interrogates it seriously. Even before entering the interrogation room, Luo Guang told the people in the European branch that he would let Claire explain clearly about going to the fake institute. Things started to develop as expected, and Luo Guang continued to ask, that's why I asked you why you think your brother will go to the Paris Institute, and why do you think that information is correct? Who would have thought you could be so cunning? Claire shouted unyieldingly, but she was already reflecting on her own stupidity. Tell us about what happened after you entered the institute. You caused so many casualties to us. Even attack helicopters were used. In the end, we almost couldn't catch you. Luo Guang gave a sweet date with a stick, and Luo Guang said unobtrusively he praised the opponent's fighting ability. There aren't many people in your research institute at all, so I found an opportunity to sneak in with others, and then I could find a place inside to stay until night before starting to act. Claire felt that the other party also knew these things, and there was nothing to hide, so he confessed directly, then I had a fight with you combatants, detonated the gas tanks in your warehouse, and killed the mercenaries who were ambushing in the warehouse. But in the end, because there were no bullets in the pistol, you just captured. Claire stared at Luo Guang with a look of unwillingness to admit defeat. Well, it's exactly the same as the information I got. Luo Guang nodded and said, it's not in vain that I brought you food and water. Since you have handed over everything, there will be no need to interrogate anymore. Cherish the present moment, have some free time. Claire didn't speak, just looked at Luo Guang. Seeing Luo Guang getting up to leave, Claire stopped Luo Guang and asked, can you tell me what is waiting for me in the future? Luo Guang looked at the other side of the mirror, which was the room next door, and then slowly said the truth, I'll probably be dragged into doing experiments. After speaking, Luo Guang left the interrogation room. 3 days passed, and Chris did not show up, so Claire changed into alloy shackles as planned, and was taken by Hank and Luo Guang on a plane to Rutherford Island. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. During these 3 days, Luo Guang had considered rescuing Claire, but after observing for these days, Luo Guang found that the security here was loose on the outside and tight on the inside, and because there were various communication equipment here, he had no way to deceive the people in the European branch that he had received a secret order to take Claire away. In addition, with the existence of Hank, Luo Guang finally gave up the idea of rescuing Claire now. Hey, Hank! Luo Guang saw Hank's figure. Although the USS people were equipped the same and habitually wore a mask to prevent virus infection, Luo Guang still recognized Hank. How did you recognize me? Hank had not spoken before, so he felt strange feeling. And didn't you say before that you had received an order to take this woman to Rutherford Island? Luo Guang deliberately said the name of the island. That's called Rockford Island. Hank glanced at Claire behind Luo Guang and corrected him. Ah, yes, I always get the name wrong. Luo Guang scratched the back of his head embarrassedly and said with sudden realization. Okay, stop being silly. Hank asked, is that the cargo behind you this time? Yes, her brother hasn't come for so many days, it seems that she has been abandoned. Don't talk so much nonsense, let's hand it over. Hank was in a hurry and interrupted the conversation to hand it over with the people in the European branch. Then Luo Guang and Hank took a plane back to Rockford Island together. Luo Guang threw the stunned Claire into the prison on Rockford Island, and then he and Hank returned to the military training center. Hello, Captain. After a series of training, Luo Guang felt that the temperament of the new USS in front of him had changed a lot, at least his mentality had changed a lot. At ease, we will have the last round of combat training next, Hank said, then turned to Luo Guang and said, sorry, only our USS people will participate in this training, so Luo Guang, you should stay here for a few days. Okay, since the other party did not clearly state what combat training it was probably a secret of the USS, so Luo Guang did not ask, and Luo Guang felt that it was not safe to go on a mission with Hank, because Hank's teammates were as capable as Chris. After Hank and Luo Guang said goodbye, they took the USS, which was ready to go, and got on the plane again. They came and went in a hurry and soon flew away from Rockford Island. At night, Hank was not there at this time, and no one taught him combat skills. Luo Guang was bored staying alone, and the snake game on his mobile phone had reached the highest score, so he planned to go and see if Claire woke up. However, what Luo Guang did not expect was that as soon as he arrived at the prison where Claire was imprisoned, this quiet island was attacked by air. Meow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 66. Chapter 65, Claire and the Brat. Although there was an air raid, Luo Guang did not move rashly, because the underground prison on Rockford Island was built with thick reinforced concrete, and according to the vibration, it was not taken care of by the air raid. The attack in the game plot has begun, and I don't know how likely I am to win against the sunglasses man. Wesker now, Luo Guang thought to himself, sitting in the guard position. There was no liquid such as water around, so Luo Guang decided to wait for Claire, who was still in a coma, to wake up. The effect of the medicine was stronger than Luo Guang imagined. The bombing had stopped for a long time before Claire slowly woke up. You. When Claire was about to speak, Luo Guang raised his hand to signal the other party to be quiet. He turned his head and looked at the entrance of the underground prison. He heard footsteps coming down from above. Luo. The person who came down was Rockford Island security captain Rodrigo. He was originally an aboriginal on the island. In order to protect the last remains on the island, he could only choose to submit to Umbrella Corporation and become a security captain. Seeing the pistol held by Luo Guang, Rodrigo did not act rashly. He covered his bleeding waist and said, "We are one of us." Luo Guang saw that the other party was not carrying any weapons, so he put down his gun and asked, "The island was attacked. Why did you come here instead of dealing with the enemy? And you brought the key to the cell door with you." Rodriguez's hand, which was not covering the wound, held a bottle of medicine and a key on his finger. "The enemy is all planes, how can we fight?" Rodrigo was bombed before and injured in the abdomen. He was also angry, but he continued, "And the enemy has deployed biological and chemical weapons. Our security team has no experience in dealing with those monsters. Many people have died." After saying that, Rodrigo, who knew that he might not live long, ignored Luo Guang and turned around to open the door of the cell for Claire, who looked at a loss. Claire did not come out immediately, but looked at Luo Guang. "Come here." Luo Guang sighed, took out the key to Claire's bracelet and anklet, and motioned Claire to come over. Because of the shackles on her feet, Claire could only walk over slowly, and then Luo Guang opened the shackles on her body one by one. After moving her hands and feet and rubbing her wrists, Claire looked at Luo Guang and Rodrigo and asked, "Why did you let me go?" Rodrigo, who was sitting against the wall, threw away the empty medicine bottle in his hand and said, "Anyway, I was just forced to help Umbrella Company. Now I'm almost dead, why should I care about so many things?" Claire saw the place where Rodrigo was injured, picked up the medicine, and after confirming what medicine it was, asked Luo Guang, "What about you?" "I need someone to help me escape." Luo Guang did not tell Claire that he knew Jill at this time, because he didn't know whether the surveillance equipment here would record his words. As for helping Claire escape, Luo Guang felt that Claire, who would be used as an experimental material, was not of much value anyway, so Umbrella Company should not hold him responsible too much. "You want me to cooperate with you?" Claire was surprised that Luo Guang had such an idea. Luo Guang stood up, took the dagger from the guard's desk, handed it to Claire, and said, "You are a survivor of the Raccoon City incident. You just heard that the enemy has released biological weapons. I think you should have a lot of experience in surviving in a biochemical crisis, right? How do I know if it's worth it to give my back to you?" Claire did not rashly take the dagger handed over by the other party, and looked at Luo Guang vigilantly. "First, you are not valuable, otherwise you would not be thrown here as experimental material. Second, the enemy attacking here has a higher priority than you." Luo Guang thought about it, and continued to make up the 3 points. "Third, when you were exhausted and interrogated, I got you sleep time, food, and water. Otherwise, how could you be so energetic at this time when you were interrogated all the time?" Luo Guang said, "Here, a little bit of fatigue will cost you your life." "Okay, I believe you for now." Claire took the dagger from Luo Guang's hand, held it in her hand, and asked, "What should I do next?" "I plan to go to the airport on the island first to see if there are any planes that can be used." Although Luo Guang thought that the airport might be the focus of the bombing, he decided to take a look. Okay, Claire didn't know where to go at this time, so she agreed with Luo Guang's opinion. Luo Guang walked in front, and Claire, who was a few steps behind Luo Guang, turned around and asked Rodrigo, who had captured him, "What are you going to do?" "Don't worry about me, run away quickly." Rodrigo shook his head and waved Claire to leave quickly. "Thank you." Claire nodded to thank the other party for letting her out, turned around and followed Luo Guang. The Lotford Island prison was built in an underground area, so it was necessary to walk a long staircase back to the ground. Outside the prison was a cemetery. The wreckage of a helicopter was stuck in the center of the cemetery, knocking down the fence of the cemetery, and was burning fiercely. Just as Luo Guang and Claire walked a few steps away from the helicopter behind them suddenly made a clanging sound. Luo Guang looked back and saw the burning pilot falling from the helicopter to the ground, hitting the helicopter door on the ground, and then slowly climbed up and staggered towards Luo Guang and the others. "Zombies!" Claire was stunned when she saw the face of the helicopter pilot, and muttered. The unbearable memories came flooding back, reminding Claire of her experience in Raccoon City. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. A gunshot interrupted Claire's thoughts, and Luo Guang took the Beretta M92F pistol and shot the driver zombie back to hell. Suddenly, Claire heard a sound at her feet, and a pale hand came out of the ground and grabbed Claire, who was retreating. Claire stumbled and fell to the ground on her buttocks. Luo Guang was looking at a silver box on the ground on the other side of the helicopter. Hearing the sound behind him, he looked back. Claire looked a little embarrassed at this time, and hurriedly kicked the head of the white zombie that came out of the ground, and then successfully broke free from the restraints. Alas, although Luo Guang had been mentally prepared when he knew the name of the island, he still felt depressed when he saw the experimenters infected with the T-virus buried shallowly in the ground, wondering why the pit was not dug deeper. Luo Guang's shoes were iron-toed, so Luo Guang took advantage of the fact that the zombies were still half buried in the soil and the thing under his crotch had not yet appeared to pollute his eyes, and rushed up and kicked the zombies in the head. Under Claire's surprised eyes, Luo Guang solved the zombies in the cemetery one by one in the blink of an eye. "Are you okay?" Luo Guang came to Claire, who fell to the ground and stretched out his hand. "I'm fine." Claire slapped Luo Guang's hand away and stood up on her own. Luo Guang nodded and walked out of the iron gate on the other side of the cemetery with Claire. As soon as the two passed through the iron gate, a strong light shone in front of them. Luo Guang was startled, hugged Claire and flew to the side of the overturned truck. Da-da-da-da. A series of machine gun bullets accompanied by the light of the searchlight began to sweep the position where Luo Guang and the other person had just been. Luo Guang did not stop. He immediately stood up, stepped back a few steps, crossed the truck, and fired 2 shots at the searchlight on the high prison sentry tower. The enemy was startled by Luo Guang's counterattack. When he was about to aim the M60 machine gun on the sentry tower at Luo Guang, there were several more gunshots. Claire used a Beretta M93R pistol she picked up to fight back against the people on the prison sentry tower. The M93R pistol, also developed by Beretta, has a speed selector on the upper left of the slide, allowing it to use 3 bursts for shooting. At the same time, in order to cope with the recoil of 3 bursts, the front end of the barrel of the M93R pistol has an opening to suppress the muzzle from rising during firing, and a small grip is built in front of the trigger guard. After Claire fired a few shots, the people on the sentry tower actually raised their hands in surrender, poked their heads out and shouted, "Don't shoot." Claire looked sideways at the prison sentry tower and saw that there were no more ammunition belts at the positions of the M60 machine gun and the ammunition belt box. Then he stood up, used the truck as a cover, and shouted to the people upstairs, "Come down." The people upstairs saw that Claire did not continue to shoot, so they slid down the emergency escape rope on the sentry tower, turned around and saw the pistol in Claire's hand pointing at them, and quickly raised their hands again. Luo Guang walked behind Claire and noticed that the man, or the boy's clothes were the prisoner clothes he had seen on the island. Originally, Claire would change into such a set of clothes after waking up, but she didn't expect Wesker's attack to come so quickly. "I'm not trying to escape. I shot you before just because I thought you were those undead people," the boy said nervously. "It looks like you are not in the same group as Umbrella." "My name is Claire Redfield, and I was captured." Claire heard the other person's words and knew that he was not from Umbrella Company. She relaxed a little and put down the gun. "My name is Steve Burnside, be careful." Steve suddenly pointed his finger behind Claire and shouted. Claire remembered Luo Guang's existence, holding the M93R pistol in her hand, and was about to aim behind her. Luo Guang saw that Steve started to run towards another iron door next to him the moment Claire turned around, but Luo Guang chose to deal with Claire's aggressive movements first. The distance between the two was very close, and Claire did not realize that she had to retract the pistol to aim. When she swung her arm from front to back and was about to draw a semicircle, Luo Guang's right hand holding the gun blocked the path of her right hand. Then Luo Guang took a step forward, and his left hand holding the knife had already put the blade against Claire's neck. Claire's head had just turned halfway, and she felt the cold blade on her neck, so she did not dare to act rashly at this time. "You are from Umbrella, don't try to fool me." Steve left a last word after pushing open the iron gate and leaving. "It seems that the other party misunderstood your identity." Luo Guang understood why Steve's pupils shrank slightly when he saw him. He must have seen him before. Claire was wearing private clothes like himself, but Claire said that she was captured, so there was this misunderstanding. I'm sorry." How could Claire not understand that she was fooled by Steve at this time? Luo Guang looked at the wall of the small courtyard and saw the broken camera. He sighed and said, "Do you know Leon?" "What?" Claire was very surprised that Luo Guang suddenly said Leon's name. Luo Guang saw the other person's expression and realized that he knew Leon. He then moved the retractable dagger away, thinking that Jill should have reported her affairs to Chris, and then continued, "Your brother and I are in the same group." Claire was so shocked that she couldn't speak. "Do you have any evidence?" Claire had been through so many things since she came to Europe, not to mention that she had just been fooled by a little kid, so Claire didn't dare to believe Luo Guang easily at this time. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. My name is Luo Guang, and I'm also a survivor of Raccoon City. I know Officer Marvin and the others. Luo Guang continued. Marvin and I contacted the rescue helicopter at the Raccoon City Police Department, but Leon wanted to wait for you to meet up at the police station to escape together, so Marvin and I left first and gave Leon a red heart key and Brad's notebook. Ah, I did hear Leon say this, but we couldn't contact the helicopter after that. After hearing Luo Guang say something that only Leon and Marvin knew, combined with Luo Guang's previous attitude towards her, Claire finally believed Luo Guang's words. Because the helicopter crashed halfway, the pilot unfortunately died. Luo Guang told Claire why he could not contact the rescue helicopter afterwards, and continued, "But Marvin and I have successfully escaped from Raccoon City." "That's good." Claire nodded. Knowing that Luo Guang was one of her own, Claire's restless heart finally calmed down, and then she said to Luo Guang, "I want to go to Steve to make things clear." "Okay, but it's not convenient to tell others about my identity." Although Luo Guang did not explicitly say that he was an undercover, Claire understood what Luo Guang meant. "I understand. In this case, we will separate temporarily. Luo Guang, you go to find the evacuation plane, and I will go to Steve to make things clear with him. He seems to know you, so it would be better for me to explain it alone." Claire considered that Steve was a little irritable, and was worried that the other party would immediately run away or shoot after seeing Luo Guang, so she made such a proposal. Luo Guang also understood why Claire proposed to separate, but this was not a horror movie set. The most important thing was that Luo Guang wanted to take this opportunity to contact the X organization to see if there was any intelligence or rescue methods he needed there. So Luo Guang nodded in agreement with Claire's suggestion, and handed Claire 2 bullet magazines for the Beretta M92F pistol. As the M92F pistol is also produced by Beretta, it can also use a 15-round double-row magazine. Claire took Luo Guang's magazine, replaced the weapon in her hand with a brand new full magazine, and turned to find the owner of the pistol, who was an umbrella personnel lying next to the truck. Luo Guang watched Claire skillfully search for various supplies on the body lying in a pool of blood, and nodded. Since a biochemical crisis has occurred here, Claire has entered her home court. After Claire was ready, the two confirmed Luo Guang's identity again, and then said goodbye to each other and officially started this escape journey. Meow, the name of the island seems to be translated as Lotford Island, and the family name of Yossi Ford is also used, so I changed it to this. The previous chapters can also be re-downloaded. Meow. Because we couldn't find the height of the watchtower, but no matter how we thought about it, it was a bit outrageous for an ordinary person for Steve to just jump down without rolling to relieve the force, so the plot was slightly modified. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 67. Chapter 66 Sending for Help. After parting with Luo Guang, Claire immediately ran in the direction Steve left. Because she had a weapon in her hand and a lot of ammunition, Claire felt relieved. Just like in Raccoon City, Claire fought through the thorns and soon came to the prisoner cell area. The cells here are the kind of cement houses built in the air. Maybe for drainage, there are many drainage holes under the shelters here, separated by iron fences, and the size can accommodate one person to crawl in. Claire didn't see Steve or hear his movement, so she randomly chose the cell on her right to check. Just as Claire walked towards the door, the body of an umbrella employee was dragged into the drainage hole next to the door by an unknown creature. Startled by this horror movie-like scene, Claire quickly raised her weapon, aimed at the drainage hole, ready to shoot at any time, and carefully walked around it. The sound of gnawing and chewing coming from the drain made Claire shudder, but she didn't dare to check rashly without any lighting tools, fearing that she would disturb the sumptuous dinner of the unknown creature inside. Finally arriving at the cell, Claire pushed open the iron door and walked in. Inside were two long dining tables, with dining chairs and tables connected together and fixed to the ground. There were also two vending machines and a TV hanging on the wall near the dining table. A large part of the left side of the restaurant was surrounded by wire mesh, and there were several computers inside, which seemed to be where the cell managers were stationed. And this restaurant was also where the managers had their meals. Looking around, Claire didn't see Steve or hear any other movement. Claire, who was about to leave the cell, suddenly heard a loud noise coming from the iron door room on the right side of the restaurant, like the sound of a trash can falling to the ground. "Steve," Claire shouted through the door, but there was no response, because considering that Steve didn't trust her and might not answer her, Claire still carefully pushed open the rusty iron door in front of her. The iron door made a harsh sound. Claire looked inside. There were 3-person beds on both sides of the room, and Umbrella Company was very considerate to put a moldy and worn-out mattress on these beds, making the people in the middle and lower positions feel like they were lying in a morgue. Someone also put a dinner plate on the bed, attracting dense cockroaches to crawl on it. It seems that this is the prison cell for those prisoners, Claire thought so. At this time, most of the prisoners in the cell had already fallen on the bed, with their mouths slightly open, and there were traces of blood flowing around their mouths, looking like they had died of poison. These fallen prisoners did not wake up when Claire shouted and opened the door, which made Claire relax her vigilance a little, and she couldn't help but feel fortunate that no one inside had turned into a zombie. Claire walked to the end of the cell and carefully looked around the T-shaped intersection. It seemed that she could go deeper on the left, while on the right was a glass window, a trash can and a pile of toilet paper. Because the prison was heavily guarded, the windows here were not equipped with anti-theft nets or anything like that, and the overall guarding was loose inside and tight outside. When Claire looked to the right, she saw the source of the sound, a white mouse gnawing on the food scraps in the dumped trash can. Seeing Claire, the white mouse did not eat, immediately threw down the food in his hand, and ran towards a hole under the wall to escape. Claire breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that since she had come here anyway, she would explore the area on the left. Going further in was a multi-person shower and toilet, but Claire still did not see Steve. At the end of the shower, Claire saw the body of a prison guard, with the magazine of his Beretta M93R pistol and a keychain stuck on his waist. For safety reasons, Claire first stabbed the head of the corpse with a dagger, and then took away all the useful things on the corpse. Leaving the shower, Claire was about to leave the cell, but at the moment of turning, she saw the zombie on the glass window. There were no zombies lying outside the window before. The zombie seemed to have seen Claire and knocked on the window like crazy. Before Claire ran a few steps to the door, the window was smashed by the zombie. As if receiving a signal for dinner, the corpses in the cell that had not been awakened before also woke up. In fact, it was just Claire's bad luck. These prisoners who had been infected with the T-virus for a short time and died had just officially turned into zombies. Claire noticed two strange-shaped weapons on the waist of the zombie coming in from the window. They looked like pistols, but there was a cylindrical thing above the grip of the gun. Standing at the T-junction, Claire was about to be surrounded by zombies, so she made a quick decision. Before the zombie coming in from the window stood up, she used the M93R pistol in her hand to shoot 3 times in a row, and the bullets accurately hit the zombie's head. There were 3 zombies awakened in the corridor. Claire calculated that the bullets in her pistol were just enough, so she didn't rush to pick up the strange weapon. Instead, she held the gun handle with her right hand and the small grip in front of the trigger circle with her left hand, killing the zombies that were slowly approaching one by one. Click, 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 the last 3 bullets were fired, and Claire finally eliminated the zombies in the cell. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. In order to prevent being surrounded again, Claire changed the magazine, put away the M93R pistol, picked up the 2 strange weapons, and immediately left the cell. Claire, holding a strange weapon in each hand, left the cell and happened to bump into Steve, who broke in. Steve had just closed the door to block the barking zombie dog outside, and when he turned around, he saw Claire. "Hey, I'm not from Umbrella," Claire shouted directly, successfully convincing Steve, who was about to rush out the door. Of course, there may be something to do with Claire's beauty, which makes Steve unable to move. "You said you're not from Umbrella." Since Claire didn't look malicious and didn't aim her gun at herself at this time, Steve didn't make any other escape moves. After all, he didn't want to escape and get into trouble with those zombie dogs. "Fight." "Yes, although the person I was with just now is from Umbrella, he doesn't know the dirty things Umbrella has done, and he was only recently deployed to the island," Claire said. He gave the explanation discussed with Luo Guang. Steve said with suspicion in his eyes, "Then why did you come together?" "Because our goal is to escape from this island." "See, if your plan is successful, it means that he and I are not the same people," Claire continued to explain. Perhaps it was Claire's experience taking care of Shirley in Raccoon City that made Claire full of patience when talking to Steve, a boy who looked younger than herself. "All right." After saying that, Steve looked at the room on the left that was surrounded by barbed wire, walked over, held the railing on the door, and pulled it back without pulling. "Hey, try these keys." Claire threw the keychain she got from the shower room to Steve. After all, Steve had been here for a long time, and he could tell at a glance that this was the key that only the guard captain had. He quickly found the key to the prison management room and successfully opened the iron door. Claire and Steve walked in, and Claire was surprised to find that Chris' information was displayed on the computer in the prison management room. Although she didn't know why the people in the prison management room wanted to see this information, Claire couldn't care less. She walked over to check it out. At the same time, she was talking about her own experience and said to Steve, "I'm looking for my brother, was caught by Umbrella during his descent." "What does your brother do? Why is he being followed by Umbrella?" Steve stared at Claire's raised hips as she bent over the keyboard, and couldn't help but hold his chin with his left hand, like a taster watching it. All the same, the corners of his mouth raised slightly unconsciously. "I don't know. He disappeared 3 months ago. I once broke into Umbrella's research institute in Paris to look for him, but I was caught red-handed." Claire, who was concentrating on using the computer, did not realize that she was behind him. With his eyes open, he quickly found useful information from the computer. It turns out that Umbrella has been trying to monitor people in STARS. There was also intelligence information to monitor Claire. Only then did Claire realize that she had been monitored by Umbrella people from the first step she set foot on European soil. Thinking of this, Claire felt that using this computer to contact other STARS members to rescue herself was not a good strategy. Instead, it would expose the location of others. Fortunately, apart from confirming the general location of Chris and Jill, the Umbrella company has no clues about Barry's location yet. Therefore, the meeting between Luo Guang and Barry was not discovered by Umbrella. As she spoke, Claire seemed to notice the increasingly fiery gaze behind her, and turned back to look at Steve. When Steve saw Claire turning back, he quickly put down his left hand that was touching his chin, turned his head, looked at the GRU P08 in his right hand, and played with the pistol. Claire tilted her head, thinking it was her imagination, and then looked back at the computer, trying to use the computer to contact Leon, who was undergoing official job training in the Lighthouse country. In the end, Claire successfully sent an email to Leon's mailbox, mentioning in the email that she hoped Leon could find a way to contact Chris and find a way to save herself while notifying Chris to be careful. Then you were sent here. Steve understood after hearing Claire's experience. After sending the email, Claire controlled the computer again, trying to find out the location of the island. Without stopping, she asked, "What about you? What did you commit to get caught?" "My things are very boring, you don't want to know." Steve stopped turning the gun in his hand, and his tone was slightly lower, not wanting to say anything. "Just tell me." Although it was the beauty's request, Steve did not answer immediately. He sneered and thought for a moment before saying, "I didn't do anything because a troll messed up the matter and implicated me." Steve then turned around, his bangs slightly blocking the haze in his eyes, and said, "Then we met here." While chatting, the computer beeped, and Claire finally searched the location of the island from the computer's database. "This island is in the southern hemisphere." "Yes, it seems that you don't know much about this place." In order to change the topic of how he came here, Steve introduced the island to Claire and said, "This is actually a place owned by a noble family. The family name is Ashford." Steve said, turned his head, looked at the portrait hanging high on the wall, and said, "The person in the painting is Alfred Ashford. He is the only survivor of the family. The people in the prison said that this person went crazy because of loneliness, so he captured the prisoners in the prison and tortured them inhumanely in his mansion." After Claire sent the location of the island to Leon again by email, she looked back at the painting that Steve pointed to. The person in the painting has golden hair, wearing a red and white noble suit, and 3 golden medals on his right chest that show the honor of the family. "Do you know which side is the one that bombed the island?" Claire asked, noting the appearance of the person in the painting. Judging from Luo Guang's reaction, Claire guessed that it was a hostile organization that was not on good terms with Umbrella. However, Claire didn't think that Steve, who had been imprisoned here, would know, so she continued, "No matter what, I have contacted Leon. He is my friend and he will come to save us." "Impossible, no one will come to save us except ourselves." Claire's words were obviously very ordinary, but Steve's reaction was unexpectedly large, and he said it decisively. After that, Steve didn't know why, but ran out of the other door of the prison management room angrily. As soon as he went out, Steve ran into 2 zombies directly, cursed, and used the GRU P08 in his hand to hit the chin of the zombie closest to him and shot twice. Then he threw the zombie he had solved to another zombie, causing the zombie to be knocked to the ground and pressed under the zombie with a hole in his head. Woof woof. Claire, who was about to follow out, heard 2 dog barks and felt bad. He picked up the 2 strange weapons on the table because of the computer control and immediately chased after it. Claire ignored the zombie struggling to get up and ran towards the direction of the dog barking. "Steve." Claire quickly caught up with Steve, who was entangled by 2 zombie dogs. Steve was being attacked from both sides by the zombie dogs, so he gave up running and decided to fight to the death. Bang bang bang, he emptied all the bullets in GRU's P08 pistol, but because Steve was very nervous at the time, his hit rate was not high, and he only killed 1 zombie dog after firing all the bullets. Another zombie dog had already approached Steve, leaped up, and bit Steve's neck with its sharp teeth. Steve was thrown to the ground directly, and the zombie dog was taking the opportunity to bite Steve's neck frantically. The situation was urgent, and Claire could only bite the bullet and aim the gun. With a bang, the zombie dog, who was in high spirits, softened and fell on Steve. Asterisk. I also want to update twice a week, but I can't do it. I had something to do this morning, so I updated late. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 68. The Big Boss. Luo Guang. Claire looked towards the iron gate from the sentry tower, where the gunshot came from. The shot that was fired before was not from Claire, but from Luo Guang, who happened to arrive. At this time, the fully armed Luo Guang did not reply immediately, but walked straight to Steve to confirm the other party's injuries. Steve survived the disaster, pushed away the zombie dog on his body, sat on the ground, and kept groping his neck. He felt a wet but cold feeling from his hands. He was surprised to find that it was the prisoner's induction collar that blocked the zombie dog's sharp teeth for him. Then Steve touched his body again, and after confirming that he was not scratched by the zombie dog's claws in the chaos, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. As a result, when he turned around, Steve saw Luo Guang aiming a gun at him, and Steve was so scared that he shouted, "Don't shoot! I wasn't bitten." While shouting, Steve pointed at the iron ring on his neck. Because Claire told him about her cooperation with Luo Guang, Steve's first reaction was to say that he was not bitten and would not become like his cellmate, instead of thinking that Luo Guang was going to take him back to the cell. "That's good, luckily I arrived in time." Seeing that the other party was not bitten, Luo Guang put down his gun and said that he was just trying to prevent the other party from becoming a zombie. "Luo, how is the situation?" Because Claire didn't know where the airport was, she didn't feel strange to see Luo Guang coming back so quickly, and hurriedly asked about the plane. Luo Guang shook his head and said, "I saw from the surveillance outside the airport that all the planes at the airport were destroyed, and the port was on the other side of the island. There seemed to be a ship there that was not sunk, but because of the fire, it was not clear, and I didn't know if we could leave in the ocean. The resolution of the camera in this era was not high, and the high temperature of the flame caused the light to be slightly distorted." Luo Guang could only see that there was still a ship floating on the water. As he said that, Luo Guang took out 2 walkie-talkies and handed them to Claire and Steve respectively. "The channel has been adjusted and can be used directly." Luo Guang knew that Claire and Steve were walking together, so he had prepared 3 walkie-talkies. Claire was also curious about this and asked, "How do you know I can find Steve?" "When you were operating the computer in the prison management room, I saw it from the surveillance on the other side." Luo Guang's umbrella company account was higher than the prison guard's level, so he could view more surveillance on the island on the computer in the old military training center, and Luo Guang didn't have to go to the airport to check the situation in person. It was for this reason that Luo Guang took the weapons and equipment from the training center so quickly and found Claire and the others. Luo Guang said this and looked at Steve meaningfully, and Steve instantly realized that Luo Guang had seen him secretly admiring Claire's buttocks. Steve turned his head a little embarrassedly, pretending to check if there were any injuries on other parts of his body. Luo Guang did not expose the fact that Steve had checked himself once before, but handed one of the 2 shotguns hanging on the backpack behind him and a tactical belt to Claire. Claire was holding the 2 strange weapons in her hands, so Luo Guang helped Claire put on the tactical belt. Hanging the 2 strange weapons on her waist, Claire took the Remington M870 shotgun and a dozen No. 12 shotgun shells handed to her by Luo Guang. Because there were limited mounting points on his backpack, Luo Guang could only bring 2 shotguns from the equipment warehouse of the Military Training Institute. The one he gave Claire was a Remington M870 shotgun, a classic shotgun of the Lighthouse country. The shotgun that Luo Guang left behind was a SPAS-12 shotgun. This shotgun did not have a folding stock installed. Like the Beretta M92F, it was a weapon from the Italian company and was also a classic. Steve curled her lips when she saw that Luo Guang only gave Claire a shotgun, and then she looked at the shotgun in Claire's hand with envy. Remembering that his Group P08 only had 1 full magazine left, Steve sighed slightly. Claire noticed Steve's expression and his gaze towards the weapon in his hand. After thinking about it, because this shotgun was brought by Luo Guang, she said to Luo Guang, "Let Steve use this shotgun. I have 2 powerful weapons here." "Oh, it's a Calico M-100P pistol." Luo Guang found the data of the 2 strange weapons on Claire's waist from the system's database and said, "Although this gun has a lot of ammunition, I think those 0.22 LR pistol bullets are not easy to replenish here. The owners of these 2 weapons bought them with their own money, so the bullet models used are not easy to find on this island where 9mm pistol bullets are commonly used." Claire nodded, indicating that she understood Luo Guang was hinting that she should not give the shotgun to others, but Claire finally decided to give the Remington M870 shotgun in her hand to Steve. Give it to me, Steve was a little surprised. He didn't understand why Claire was so nice to him. This shotgun could play a huge role in this disaster and even save the owner's life. You probably don't have many bullets left in your weapon. Claire could see that the other party didn't carry many magazines, so she said. Luo Guang did not stop Claire's behavior, but after some hesitation, Steve finally chose to accept Claire's kindness. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. If you're ready, let's go. Luo Guang saw that the zombies in this area were surrounding them, but they were still relatively far away, so everyone was relatively safe. Claire and Steve looked around and understood that it was not suitable to stay here for a long time, so they followed Luo Guang and left the prison area. Not long after, the three of them came to a connecting bridge. Luo Guang looked forward and saw several cars colliding with each other on the bridge, but the sidewalks on both sides seemed to be passable. At the end, there is a cliff. There is a large, closed iron gate on the cliff. This iron gate is obviously not something Luo Guang and the others can open, so Luo Guang and the others need to take the stairs on the edge of the cliff to the area above. There were no zombies around, so Claire finally had a chance to tell Luo Guang about the email she sent to Leon. But I don't know when Leon will come over. It's not an option for us to wait. Luo Guang didn't say that Leon or Chris wouldn't come over. Steve on the other side still looked like he didn't believe anyone would come to save him. I understand, but I still have something to ask Luo Guang. Claire wanted to test Luo Guang's position again, and she did have questions about many things. What's up? Why did a biochemical crisis break out on this island? Didn't Rodrigo say that the enemy only dropped biochemical weapons? Claire asked. Luo Guang told Claire what he saw during the surveillance without any concealment. In addition to the biological and chemical weapons attack that caused some people to be infected with the virus, someone poisoned the meals of some prisoners and guards one day in advance, and then there were human bites. Man, then there's the recreation of Raccoon City. Through surveillance, the undercover poisoner should be the cook of this prison. That means this attack must be premeditated. Claire, who had not eaten because she was in a coma, thought and said. Steve, who heard Luo Guang's words, was thankful that he had been in solitary confinement without food. Not long after he was released, he encountered this crisis, and it was during the internal chaos that he successfully escaped from the guards of imprisonment. But thinking about it, Steve touched his belly. At this time, he felt a little hungry, but he didn't know whether the food contained viruses at this time, which made Steve very confused. As for Luo Guang, what he ate on the island was basically canned food and boiling hot water. But even if Luo Guang did eat food and water containing the T virus, it would have no impact on Luo Guang at this time. After the three people finished talking, and were about to leave for the opposite side, a beautiful figure suddenly appeared on a protrusion above the opposite side of the bridge. Her purple-blue flowing dress and beautiful shoulder-length blonde hair, coupled with her delicate face, immediately caught everyone's attention. Steve was surprised, while Luo Guang showed a solemn expression. Claire's first reaction was also to worry about the safety of the beauty. Just when she was about to call out to the beauty opposite, the blonde beauty suddenly opened her mouth and sang a touching song, which immediately blocked Claire's words back in her throat. The song was filled with longing for someone, and it was obviously sung a cappella, but Claire felt that the sound of the wind blowing around her and the sound of the burning thunderbolt were accompaniment to the singing of the woman in front of her. Less than a minute later, the blonde woman stopped singing, looked at Luo Guang and the others with sad eyes, and then turned around and left. Wait a minute, Claire shouted quickly, trying to stop the other party. Wait a minute, Claire. Luo Guang and Steve stopped Claire in unison. What are you doing? It's too dangerous for her to be alone on this island as a woman. but it's too weird for her to live alone on the island until now. Steve immediately pointed out what was strange about the woman. Claire was stopped by the two people, and she could only stop when she heard Steve's words. When Steve saw Luo Guang also stopping Claire, in order to find support to persuade Claire, he turned around and asked Luo Guang, "Who is this woman?" "It's him, Alfred Ashford." Luo Guang naturally had an impression of this cross-dressing boss in the game, which greatly shocked Luo Guang when he was a child. What? It was still 1998, so both Claire and Steve were very surprised by this breaking news. Claire quickly recalled what Steve said and said, "I heard Steve say that the owner of Lowford Island, Alfred Ashford, is crazy. Is this rumor true?" Luo Guang nodded, indicating that Claire's words were correct. Steve lowered his head and said, "I saw such a thing from the prisoner's diary in the asylum. The prisoners will be taken to the mansion-like building where Alfred Ashford is. And then terrifying laughter and prisoners' whines will begin to come from the building. That's why there is such a rumor. But looking back now, I realize that those prisoners who were taken away and never came back were probably all tortured by him and then executed." Claire looked at the two of them, temporarily listened to their opinions, and backed down, "But since he is the boss here, we can't let him go. Anyway, there is always a chance, so don't rush for a while, let's go first." Luo Guang felt that the first priority was to escape from the place of right and wrong, so he comforted Claire and walked towards the other side of the bridge. The two followed Luo Guang around the collided vehicle and walked to the middle of the bridge. Suddenly, a large group of bats infected with the T-virus emerged from the bottom of the bridge because they felt the footsteps on the bridge, flew into the air, and searched for their prey. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. The bats' bright red eyes instantly stared at Luo Guang and the other two, and the groups of bats merged into a black storm and attacked the three. "Be careful," Claire shouted, holding two Calico M-100 PS and began to shoot at the black storm. Steve also followed up and attacked with a shotgun. But Luo Guang did not attack immediately, and took a shotgun and ran behind the collided vehicle and then raised the gun to shoot. The three of them fired in various ways, and gunshots rang out for a while. It happened that the weapons in the hands of the three were suitable for dealing with such small and large enemies. After being hit by a few shotgun shells, the leading bats were frightened and suddenly scattered around, each taking a team of bats with them. "Let's go up now," Luo Guang shouted, leaving the bats' territory while the bats were running away. Claire and Steve followed Luo Guang's order and ran to the iron stairs across the bridge. On the way, the bats also tried to regroup and charge at Luo Guang and his friends again, but they were all dispersed one by Luo Guang and his friends. In the end, it seemed that because of the fierce firepower of Luo Guang and his friends, these bats finally gave up the idea of treating Luo Guang and his friends as dinner. The three of them came to the upper area and did not see Alfred Ashford. Instead, the zombies everywhere attacked Luo Guang with their fangs and claws after seeing Luo Guang and his friends. Although he didn't know how Alfred Ashford got through these zombies, Luo Guang didn't have time to think about this problem at this time. He held the retractable dagger in his hand and let the zombies he faced follow the footsteps of his predecessors in Raccoon City. Only a few seconds slower than Claire and his friends who used guns, Luo Guang cleared out the enemies on his side. After walking to the upper area, Luo Guang saw the mansion that Steve mentioned. When he was about to invite the two to go together, two hunters attracted by the gunshot jumped out from behind the wall and landed right between Claire and Steve, isolating Steve at once. As mentioned before, Steve believed in himself more, and ran in another direction after a curse. Before Claire and Luo Guang had time to talk, the two hunters split into two groups, one chasing Steve and the other attacking Claire. At this time, Claire still had the two Calico M-100 guns in her hands. In order to save Steve, she didn't care about saving bullets. She shot the blind hunter into a sieve with full automatic shooting. After solving the enemy in front of her, Claire was ready to chase Steve, but Luo Guang grabbed her arm and stopped her. "Don't chase him, it's dangerous over there." Luo Guang checked the surveillance and knew that there were more biological and chemical weapons on the island. No, Claire tried to shake off Luo Guang's hand, but Luo Guang's strength was much greater than Claire's, so Claire didn't break free, but hurt her arm instead. Seeing this, Claire stared at Luo Guang without saying anything. "Meow, I just realized that not all bats are highly myopic. By the way, I changed the map layout a little bit. Because I went out for work, I checked the update late. There is also the matter of double update, let's do it on Sunday." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 69. Chapter 68, Fighting the Sunglasses Man. In the end, Luo Guang still couldn't twist Claire, and let go of her hand to let Claire chase Steve. He saw the shining points in Claire that were similar to Jill. They were both full of justice. As long as they decided something that they thought was right, they would do their best to complete it. Speaking of which, he had been separated from Jill for a while. Luo Guang thought about going back alive this time. When Luo Guang thought of this, he quickly interrupted the flag that he was about to raise and drew his attention back to the present. However, Luo Guang let Claire go for more than just that reason, because he had his own plan to implement. Thinking of this, Luo Guang concentrated his mind and walked alone to Alfred Ashford's magnificent mansion. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow Diamond Suit. This mansion is right in the middle of Lotford Island, but this is not the only way to the port, but Luo Guang chose this road just to get the T. Veronica virus from Alfred. T. Veronica virus, this is the virus created by the genius girl Alexia after fusing the ancestral virus and the ancient Queen Ant gene. This fused modified virus can greatly enhance the various abilities of the T virus. In simple terms, this virus can further enhance Luo Guang's physical ability after being transformed by the T virus. Although the T. Veronica virus has weaknesses such as fear of low temperatures and strong invasiveness to biological cells, the T. Veronica virus also has the characteristics of highly activated cells, accelerated reactions, increased body hardness, etc. Therefore, Luo Guang was determined to obtain the T. Veronica virus, and the plan to obtain the virus began as early as Luo Guang arrived on the island. So Luo Guang used the identity of a senior intelligence agent of Umbrella to wander around the island and chat with Alfred's secretary to get information. But someone's arrival was faster than Luo Guang expected. When he arrived at the mansion, the man was already standing in the garden in front of the mansion. Albert Wesker. Luo Guang narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at the majestic man in black windbreaker and sunglasses. Luo Guang and Wesker have no grudges now, but Luo Guang clearly remembers that in the game of Resident Evil 5, Jill was captured by Wesker for virus experiments, and finally an automatic drug injector was installed for Jill to control Jill. Thinking of this, Luo Guang himself and Wesker also have a blood feud. Wesker, who arrived in the garden only one step faster than Luo Guang, had already heard the footsteps behind him. He noticed Luo Guang's arrival and turned to look at Luo Guang, who walked into the garden. Because the other party had been prepared, Luo Guang did not sneak attack the other party at the first time. If the sneak attack failed, Luo Guang had to try to get some information from the other party. "Do you know me?" Wesker looked at Luo Guang, as if thinking about where he had seen him before. Even if the other party was wearing sunglasses, Luo Guang could feel the fierce eyes behind the sunglasses. Luo Guang said tit for tat, "Who doesn't know the famous Umbrella trader Wesker? Are you from Umbrella? Umbrella knows about my fake death." Hearing Luo Guang's words, Wesker's first reaction was that Luo Guang was from the company. Although Umbrella began to decline, the intelligence network that Umbrella had been building was still very powerful at this time, so Luo Guang raised the banner of Umbrella and asked with a smile, Do you think you can deceive the company? He, it seems that there are still smart people in the company. I thought that after Alexia and William died, there were only idiots left in the company. Although Wesker said so, he would not underestimate Umbrella. At this moment, he wanted to know more about how Umbrella discovered that he was faking his death, so he said that to try to anger Luo Guang. However, Luo Guang was not strictly speaking an Umbrella man, so he did not react when he heard Wesker scolding Umbrella people as idiots. Wesker, who was very tired of being monitored by Umbrella, looked at Luo Guang like a hunter staring at his prey. He thought of someone who could ask how the company discovered that he was faking his death, and that was Luo Guang in front of him. There are many smart people, for example, they know that it was you who commanded the troops to attack here. Yes, it was me who launched the attack. Wesker generously admitted that he launched the attack, but did not mention the forces behind him and his purpose. Luo Guang could have said all of Wesker's current forces and goals in the previous sentence, but if so, it would be easy for the two of them to develop into a situation of no end to life. Let's not talk about how his evolution compared to Wesker's. In terms of combat experience, he was no match for Wesker, the former STARS captain who received elite education, so Luo Guang chose a more stable countermeasure. As a eugenicist, Wesker looked at Luo Guang holding a shotgun so calmly and said so many words because he had absolute confidence in his future god self. Having said that, Luo Guang did not think he could get more out of Wesker, so he did not say hello and directly raised his gun to shoot, using the semi-automatic shooting function of the SPAS-12 shotgun to shoot quickly. Out of respect for the weapon in Luo Guang's hand, Wesker instantly raised his right hand to protect his head, and did not stop his footwork, and immediately dodged, taking a few steps and hiding behind the stone pillar at the entrance of the mansion. Although Luo Guang had expected Wesker to be faster than ordinary people, he had already made preparations in advance and aimed not at Wesker's body, but at his sides and the route he would take when dodging. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. In Luo Guang's opinion, the shotgun should have hit, but he did not see any delay in Wesker's movements. Click, Luo Guang had used up all the bullets in the shotgun. Wesker, who had keen hearing, rushed out from behind the stone pillar immediately before the slight empty sound appeared. Wesker knew the number of rounds in the SPAS-12 shotgun very well. After hearing Luo Guang fire the SPAS-12 shotgun with the maximum amount of rounds, he knew that Luo Guang had used up all the ammunition and rushed out without hesitation. Because of Wesker's previous performance against the shotgun, Luo Guang did not do the operation of stuffing bullets into the ejection port, but directly threw the SPAS-12 shotgun in his hand into the floor bead beside him. After that, Luo Guang did not take out his pistol, but stood ready with both hands to welcome Wesker's attack. Wesker did not carry any knives or guns as weapons, because his own body was his most trusted and powerful weapon. At this time, he wanted to use his own hands to tear the man in front of him who made him dodge in two halves. Wesker rushed in front of Luo Guang and directly punched Luo Guang in the stomach with a straight punch that broke through the air. However, Luo Guang followed Wesker's movements to Wesker's surprise. He dodged with his left body and grabbed Wesker's right wrist with his right hand and twisted it. Luo Guang also used his strongest strength for the first time, which directly made Wesker's idea of striving to break free from Luo Guang fail. At the same time, in order to protect his arm from being twisted off, Wesker's body was one step ahead of Wesker's personal will and was forced to tilt to the side in the direction of Luo Guang's twisting hand. Of course, Luo Guang's round was not over yet. He punched Wesker's right arm from bottom to top with his clenched left fist. With a slight click, Wesker's right arm was dislocated. For the virus in his body, this was different from a fracture and was not considered physical damage, so he did not repair himself. And there were more urgent things to deal with at this time, so Wesker had no time to control his body muscles to reset. Although Wesker's arm hurt, his lower body was still stable. He kicked Luo Guang with a sweeping kick, intending to force him away. Luo Guang saw that he had just achieved his goal and no longer entangled with Wesker, the former captain of STARS. He loosened his right hand and stepped back. Wesker's right arm could not exert its full strength at this time. As soon as his left leg landed, he turned around and kicked Luo Guang with his right foot. Through the previous power confrontation, Luo Guang found that his strength was even higher than that of the opponent, so he chose to use his hands to resist Wesker's heavy kick, and successfully held the opponent's right heel, then lifted it slightly upward, and at the same time, Luo Guang bent over and punched, hitting Wesker's raised right thigh with another heavy punch. Unlike holding Wesker's hand before, Luo Guang, who held the heel at this time, could control the distance between him and Wesker at any time, so that Wesker's punches could not hit Luo Guang. But after all, the person in front of Luo Guang was Wesker. Before Luo Guang had time to recover his posture and distance himself, Wesker kicked forward with his left leg, pressed his body forward, and performed a split. Then Wesker used his left hand to hit Luo Guang's wrist, holding the heel with a side hook. Luo Guang stopped when he saw that he was ahead, and did not want to gamble that Wesker would hurt his wrist this time, so he chose to let go of his hand directly, distance himself, and barely avoided Wesker's kick because he let go of his hand. The two finally separated a little. Wesker opened his mouth slightly, as if he wanted to say something, but he saw Luo Guang rushing towards him, who had just landed on his legs. At this time, the heavy blow to Wesker's right thigh had been completely repaired, so his lower body was still stable, but Luo Guang did the opposite and decided to use his strength advantage to attack the opponent's lower body. Luo Guang rushed to Wesker and threw a punch with his left hand to lure Wesker to block, but Wesker used his dislocated right shoulder to meet Luo Guang's fist at a weird angle. Luo Guang immediately understood Wesker's idea of taking the opportunity to solve his dislocation first, so he changed his fist into a grab, grabbed Wesker's right upper arm, kicked out with his right leg to sweep Wesker's leg, and then put his right hand on Wesker's collar and directly threw Wesker over his shoulder. Luo Guang wanted to go up and throw a set of Wangba's chain punches, but was forced back by Wesker's whirlwind kick. However, Luo Guang would not just watch it, and directly took out his pistol and shot at Wesker. However, Wesker was still unscathed, and Luo Guang finally discovered that the black windbreaker on Wesker might be made of the same material as the tyrant's straitjacket, which made it impossible for weapons with weaker penetration to cause damage to him. Wesker used this time to successfully stand up and restore his dislocated right arm. He twisted his neck and looked at Luo Guang, who was no longer chasing him. Among the people I know, there are only a handful of people who are as strong as or stronger than me, but you are not one of them. Wesker seemed to be beaten badly by Luo Guang, but in fact, he did not cause much damage. Basically, he was perfectly repaired by the virus in his body in a short while. Luo Guang was not a villain. He did not talk to Wesker. He was just preparing to attack again, but Luo Guang was not sure at this time. Wesker saw this and didn't force it. He took off his sunglasses. The eyes inside changed. In the blink of an eye, they looked like snake eyes, with golden red pupils standing upright. Faster than before, Wesker dodged and came in front of Luo Guang, kicking Luo Guang with a whip kick. Luo Guang was a step slower. At this time, he couldn't get Luo Guang out of the attack range of Wesker's sweep kick even if he evaded backwards. So he made up his mind and raised his left knee to hit Wesker's right sweep kick. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Wesker was not afraid at all. At this time, he was the strongest self, facing Luo Guang's temporary knee kick. Luo Guang, who only had one leg standing on the ground, was kicked out directly. However, this was not because Luo Guang was weak. It was just that Luo Guang had only one leg standing on the ground when he blocked with his knee, and his strength was not as good as Wesker's whip kick, so he was kicked out directly. However, it was in Luo Guang's plan, thinking that he could keep a distance. However, Wesker, who was suppressed by Luo Guang before, also wanted to let Luo Guang feel his situation just now. As soon as Luo Guang landed, Wesker followed him and punched him again. This time, Luo Guang had not yet stood firm. He could not avoid it and could only choose to raise his arms to block again. Then Luo Guang's legs did not leave the ground and was directly knocked back several meters by Wesker's punch. Luo Guang needed to find an opportunity to counterattack. Through these two confrontations, the system had sorted out the comparison between Wesker's ability and his own. He had an absolute advantage in strength, but he was much inferior in flexibility. As for other attributes, the system could not analyze them through existing intelligence. Since he knew the comparison between himself and the opponent, Luo Guang did not take the initiative to attack. He recalled the fighting skills taught to him by Jill and Hank, thought about strategies, and waited for Wesker's attack. Wesker understood Luo Guang's plan when he saw Luo Guang's posture, but he just smiled evilly and rushed towards Luo Guang. A series of punches hit Luo Guang's head, abdomen, chest, and other parts. Luo Guang responded calmly, using both hands, either directly blocking or pushing Wesker's fists to the left and right. Although Luo Guang was still hit by several punches, it did not cause much damage to Luo Guang. The two exchanged 5 or 6 moves in a row, and finally Luo Guang seized the opportunity to counterattack. Wesker's hands were pushed to the sides. Because of Luo Guang's strength advantage, Wesker's hands that were pushed away could not be retracted for a while. At this time, the door was opened, which was the opportunity that Luo Guang wanted to seize. Using all his strength, Luo Guang punched Wesker directly in the chest. With a bang, Luo Guang's punch that could break the skull hit Wesker and directly knocked Wesker out. But Luo Guang frowned. He felt that he did not cause much damage to Wesker's organs. It seemed that Wesker was knocked out, but in fact it was more that Wesker took the initiative to jump back to relieve Luo Guang's strength. However, Wesker, who was knocked away by Luo Guang, stopped and did not continue to attack. Luo Guang, who was using static braking, did not attack rashly. Although he had a spare G19 pistol on him, it could only play a role of interference when used against Wesker, and it was just a waste of bullets in the end. In addition, this pistol might become a tool for a Jedi counterattack in the subsequent confrontation, so Luo Guang would not easily use this weapon that Wesker did not know. Wesker pressed the communicator beside his ear with his right hand, whispered a few words, and said to Luo Guang, who was still wary of his attack, "You are very good, let's leave our victory to next time." After that, Wesker jumped directly, climbed over the wall, left Luo Guang, and left the mansion garden. Luo Guang was slightly relieved when he saw Wesker leave. He felt that he could fight Wesker on equal terms, but Wesker's combat experience was much higher than his. If Wesker did not know him and thought he was just an ordinary person, he would not have been able to take advantage of him at the beginning. Since then, he has been on the defensive, and can only rely on the advantage of defense to slightly narrow the gap between the two sides, and he finally got back a point. Since the other party left, Luo Guang did not want to continue to fight with Wesker. After picking up the Beretta M92F pistol he threw on the ground, he walked to the flower bed and picked up the SPAS-12 shotgun that was also thrown away. The SPAS-12 shotgun is much more delicate than other Remington M870 shotguns, so Luo Guang deliberately threw it on the flower bed with flowers and soil as a buffer. After checking the weapons, Luo Guang found no problems, so he loaded the bullets of the shotgun and pistol one by one. After that, he was about to enter the mansion when he heard footsteps behind him. "Claire? Where's Steve?" Although Luo Guang saw that Steve was not with Claire, he still asked. "I didn't find anyone." Claire shook her head and said worriedly. Seeing that Claire had nothing to say next, Luo Guang realized that no body was found, so he comforted her. No body was found, which means Steve must have successfully escaped the hunter's pursuit. He is so smart, he must be fine. Claire nodded, cheered up, and asked, "By the way, I heard a lot of gunfire coming from this side. Luo Guang, did you encounter anything?" If it was just gunfire, Claire would not ask these questions, but Claire did not see the enemy's body in the garden at this time, so she asked such a question. Luo Guang did not hide anything and directly told Claire about Wesker. However, Luo Guang concealed the details of his fight with Wesker. He only said that the other party left on their own after receiving the message. The two did not decide the winner. In the end, he also told Claire to stay away from the man in sunglasses and windbreaker. Although Claire had never seen Wesker, she had seen this name in the STARS office in Raccoon City. After hearing Luo Guang's description, she guessed that Wesker might be the captain of her brother in the past, and naturally understood how dangerous the other party was. Meow, this chapter was stuck for a long time. I searched a lot of information and reviewed Wesker's performance in Veronica, but Wesker at that time faced ordinary people like Claire, and it was basically an animation plot, so it was difficult to confirm Wesker's ability at that time. Although I can't update twice, I will increase the amount today. Proud face. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 70. Chapter 69 Mansion Exploration. After talking about Wesker, the two came to the door of the mansion. Luo Guang first introduced the situation here to Claire, saying, "This mansion was newly built after Alfred came to this Lotford Island. This island seems to be the territory of the Asiford family, so there is an ancient Asiford family castle on the high platform behind this mansion. I haven't been to the mansion, so I am not familiar with many places, but I heard that there are many traps installed inside the mansion, so Claire, you should be careful not to touch anything here after you go in." When Luo Guang was on the island, he had talked with Robert Duzin, Alfred's secretary stationed here, several times, so he knew a lot about this place. Claire nodded to show that she understood, but she thought of the Raccoon City Police Department and couldn't help wondering if those dignitaries like to install traps in various places to decrypt or something. The door of the mansion was not locked. Luo Guang and the others walked in and saw a front desk. That was where the secretary handled daily affairs on the island and conveyed Alfred's orders during the day. As for the secretary at night, he would rest in his office and be ready to be dispatched by Alfred at any time. For most of the Umbrella staff on the island, Alfred was rarely seen in the past. For them, Secretary Robert was more familiar, so some people secretly called the front desk here the command desk for everyone. The white tile floor in the mansion was covered with a red carpet with gold edges, but the black and red bloodstains had eroded the luxury here. There was a staircase on the right-hand side of the door leading directly to the second floor. The hall was designed with hollows, connecting the upper and lower floors. There was an aisle after going up the stairs. There was a huge art painting on the wall. Everyone who entered the mansion would be attracted by the painting and look up. The image of the person in the painting was exactly the same as the blonde woman Claire saw on the connecting bridge. In addition to these, there are many soldiers here who were transferred by the secretary to guard the mansion. However, they didn't know what attacked them and fell to the ground, waiting for the next batch of victims to come in. Luo Guang and Claire had just finished observing the situation in the hall of the mansion, and the soldier zombies awakened by the sound of the door closing stood up with a roar and walked towards Luo Guang and the others. Luo Guang and Claire looked at each other, and the man on the left and the woman on the right, one on each side, solved the soldier zombies one by one. There are still many weapons on the bodies or on the ground of these zombies, basically all models of M16 assault rifles. But Luo Guang considered that he was now in the mansion, the combat distance was short, and the assault rifle did not seem to have a particularly big advantage over his shotgun, so he did not pick up the weapons on the ground. However, Claire picked up an M16 rifle and took a relatively clean tactical vest from one of the soldier zombies to hold the M16 bullet magazine. Seeing this, Luo Guang felt a little pity that the scar on Claire's chest could not be seen like this. Then, When the two were about to walk to the door behind the desk on the first floor, a footstep sounded, and it sounded like it was above them. The two were startled, facing the footsteps that they didn't know whether they were enemies or friends. They raised their weapons, leaned on the stone pillars, and aimed at the corridor on the second floor. But the footsteps did not get closer, but gradually moved away, and disappeared completely with the sound of the door opening and closing. "Let's go check it out first, it might be Steve," Claire said worriedly. Luo Guang nodded, and went to the corridor on the second floor with Claire, but didn't see anyone else. Claire, who was attracted by the huge painting, walked to the front of the painting, looked at the introduction below the painting, and said, "Alexia Ashford, the woman we saw before, she is also from the Ashford family, but Luo Guang, you said that the man we saw was Alfred's man." "Keep looking down." Luo Guang didn't rush to explain, but asked Claire to continue looking. "Died in 1983. Isn't that 15 years ago?" Claire was shocked. Only then did she truly believe that the woman she saw was actually a man. Luo Guang knew that Alexia was not actually dead, but took a similar approach to Wesker, faking her death to escape from the surveillance of Umbrella Corporation and provide herself with enough time to integrate the T Veronica virus. However, Luo Guang did not intend to tell Claire or others about these things, because the information was very confidential and terrifying, and Luo Guang could not explain his source of information. Just when Claire wanted to say something, a sharp female laugh sounded on the right. Luo Guang immediately raised his gun and aimed, but still did not see anyone. There were other doors in his sight, but Luo Guang did not want to pass by at this time. Luo Guang, who has watched countless horror movies, has grasped the essence of them. The most common one is to attract victims through sound, so Luo Guang said to Claire, "This should be a trap." Claire nodded, and had the same hunch in her heart, and said, "When I was searching for the soldiers on the first floor just now, I also tried to open the door behind the office on the first floor, but it was locked. It's a small matter, let's go back to the first floor first. This is not a game, it's just a door, and most of the doors can be opened with a kick by Luo Guang." After hearing Luo Guang's words, Claire thought that Luo Guang, as an employee of Umbrella Company, would have the key, so she said it was a trivial matter. But what he didn't expect was that when Luo Guang came to the door on the first floor, he kicked the handmade door lock made of gold, silver, and bronze on the expensive solid black walnut door and kicked it open. Luo Guang's movement immediately shocked Claire's jaw. He pointed at the computer on the desk and the card machine next to it, and said, "Can't we just use this to unlock it?" Luo Guang looked back and saw the Umbrella Company's security system page displayed on the computer screen. He understood what Claire meant and said, "I have just been transferred here, and the intelligence level is one level higher than those of the guards. It's basically the security system cannot unlock all the doors. However, Luo Guang's purpose is to minimize the traces he leaves behind." "Who has it?" "Alfred and his secretary," Luo Guang continued, "but I don't know where these two people have gone, so we can only do this. Let's leave quickly." Claire nodded, followed Luo Guang, and entered the door behind the desk on the first floor. Because he had only been to the lobby of the mansion, Luo Guang was not familiar with the mansion at this time. The fact that he could go to the port through here was only mentioned by his secretary while chatting with him. The two walked around and came to a large living room. Seeing various ant-shaped artworks and gemstones, Luo Guang and Claire were about to leave. However, before they could leave, a projector in the large living room appeared. Suddenly it opened and illuminated the white wall. Claire wanted to know what the projector projected, so she pulled Luo Guang to watch it together. A warm song that came from nowhere appeared along with the screen of the projector. On the screen where a beautiful face appeared first, the beautiful girl lowered her head slightly and looked up at the camera. She seemed to have traveled through time and space, and Claire looked at each other. Claire felt the pressure from the eyes of the person in the video and took a step back slightly. Then, the scene changed, and a boy with the same blonde hair and blue eyes appeared, with a face very similar to the girl before. If Steve were here, he would recognize the boy as Alfred, having seen the grown-up Alfred. The scene turned again, and the boy and the girl were sitting on a sofa, smiling, and each of them pulled out the wings of the struggling dragonfly in his hands. Then the scene changed again. The boy and the girl were looking at each other and smiling, while the dragonfly was already lying on the ant nest, being torn apart by the ants, struggling feebly. Then, the scene suddenly stopped, the projection turned off, and the background music disappeared. Claire didn't know how to evaluate the content of the video at this time, and stamped her feet a little anxiously. "It's not advisable to stay here for a long time. Let's leave quickly," Luo Guang suggested. Luo Guang had no reaction after reading it. He just felt that the content was similar to the plot of the game animation, but there were some differences. For example, Alfred did the whole process of tearing off the wings. Claire nodded and left the room first. The two continued to move forward, cleaning up many zombies and searching many rooms along the way. Alfred was not found, but the projector that suddenly played proved that Alfred, who was most familiar with the mansion, might be there. Hiding in the dark, watching the enemies entering his mansion. "Help me!" Suddenly, Steve's voice came from a room. Luo Guang quickly kicked him away and walked into the room, but Steve was nowhere to be seen. Claire also followed in, and immediately saw a strange console in the room, and Steve's figure was displayed on the screen next to it. Luo Guang also noticed this and walked over. Steve's voice came from the speaker on the side of the screen. On the screen, the picture was red and the red light was flashing, and Steve was banging on the door constantly, shouting for help. There is a plaque on the console that reads, "My anger will only subside when opposites come together." "What does this mean?" Claire said anxiously, worried about Steve's safety. Luo Guang still remembered how to crack this mechanism in the game, so he stood in front of the console and after a few attempts, he confirmed which 6 buttons corresponded to the 6 small screens above the nameplate. After confirming the corresponding buttons and the content displayed on the screen after pressing the buttons, Luo Guang pressed the 2 buttons that caused the screen to display a pistol pattern. The mechanism stopped, the door opened, and Steve successfully ran out of the next room. Steve, who escaped, held 2 golden GRU P08s in his hands, held his knees, and gasped, "What bad luck." Only then did Steve realize that it was Claire and Luo Guang who rescued him. Then Steve looked at Luo Guang and the two and said, "What a coincidence. Thanks to you, I got these 2 guns. Thank you." Steve was like a child who got his favorite toy, happily showing it off to Luo Guang and the others. Claire didn't care about the boy's new toy. She cared about Steve and asked, "I went to look for you later and couldn't find you. Where did you go?" "I just ran all the way, trying to escape from the monsters." Steve didn't get the appreciation he wanted, and was a little disappointed, but the other person had just saved him, so he still responded to Claire's words honestly. "The monster didn't know then. I was attracted by something, and then I didn't know when I came to the side entrance of the mansion." "Then you walked into this trap," Luo Guang confirmed. Steve scratched his head a little embarrassedly and said, "I got lost after entering the mansion. Then I found these 2 golden legends in a room, so I took them down from the display room. As a result, I was locked in as soon as I took them down, and the temperature kept rising. I was almost dying of heat. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading." "Forget it, Steve, I'm glad you're okay," Claire comforted her. She didn't find Steve before, and now she saw that he was safe and sound, and she finally put down her heart. The 3 of them reunited and went around, but unexpectedly returned to the hall. However, at this time, on the 2nd floor, someone was holding a shotgun and aiming at Claire, who was walking in the middle of the team. "Be careful," Steve, who was walking at the end of the team, saw the fatal red dot on the back of Claire's head, and rushed over without hesitation. With a bang, the bullet of the shotgun flew past Steve's back. Luo Guang also reacted immediately and took out his gun to shoot at the location where the gunshot sounded. A shotgun shell hit the wall next to the enemy, and the enemy also shrank behind the wall because of Luo Guang's counterattack, and could not continue to shoot at the fallen enemy. "Why did you come to disturb us?" Although the other party could not continue to shoot, he began to complain, and his tone was very strange, sounding crazy, and continued, "Are you the ones who spread those hateful viruses on my island?" Luo Guang's purpose of covering the two people who fell to the ground was achieved, and he chased after the other party with a gun. Luo, Claire and Steve, who got up while Luo Guang was covering, quickly hid behind the stone pillar and wanted to stop Luo Guang, who rushed over, but Luo Guang did not reply, but gestured to stay here. After speaking, Luo Guang stepped on the stair railing and the protruding relief on the wall and climbed to the second floor. Bang! The enemy did not expect Luo Guang to go to the second floor in this way, and the hastily aimed and shot did not hit Luo Guang. At this time, the two were very close, which made the other party panic. He turned around and ran away. He didn't want to fight with fools. Luo Guang saw clearly that the person who shot coldly was Alfred Yossiford, and then Luo Guang immediately fired back, but did not hit Alfred. Alfred Yossiford was not a fool. When he found that Luo Guang's shotgun bullets all hit the wall, he immediately understood that Luo Guang was deliberately letting him go, just like a hunter who was determined to win and playing with his prey. But unfortunately, Alfred Yossiford was a little crazy at this time. In his opinion, Luo Guang's letting him go was an insult to him, an excellent hunter. "Are you looking down on me, Alfred Yossiford?" Alfred turned his head while running and shouted at Luo Guang. Hearing Alfred Yossiford's words, Luo Guang, who rushed into the secret passage with him, understood that the other party had misunderstood his meaning, but from the fact that Steve's shouting for help could be heard by himself outside the door, the sound insulation here was not good, so Luo Guang did not immediately explain his intention. So Luo Guang followed him all the way into the mansion. Meow, I overslept, so the update is late. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 71. Chapter 70 Pie in the Sky. After going several hundred meters deep, Luo Guang followed Alfred a few meters behind him. He felt that the time and distance were almost right, so he shouted, "Sir Alfred, your sister is in danger now. She is being targeted." Luo Guang almost shouted, "Sir, don't run away. You don't want your sister to meet with an accident," but in the end, he thought that the other party was a man, so he didn't shout it out. "What?" Alfred stopped running when he heard Luo Guang mention his beloved, turned around and looked at Luo Guang, with anger in his eyes, and shouted at Luo Guang, "What are you going to do to my beloved sister?" In a hurry, Alfred Yossiford also forgot to hide the fact that his sister faked her death from outsiders. Although he was very angry, Alfred did not rashly raise his gun to shoot Luo Guang, because he didn't know whether Alexia had fallen into the hands of the other party at this time. For Luo Guang, Alfred's words directly confirmed the fact that Alexia was not dead. After confirming that Alexia's experience in this world has not changed, Luo Guang is about to start his performance. "It is those who attacked the island who want to harm your sister. And I am an employee of this island, sir." Since he was assigned here by Umbrella, he can naturally call himself an employee here. In addition, Alfred is actually not familiar with most of the staff on the island, so Luo Guang said so. The reason why Luo Guang did not mention that he was from Umbrella was to prevent the other party from treating him as Spencer's lackey. After all, the current Ashford family and the old man Spencer do not get along well. Because of this, Alfred was exiled to this Lotford Island, away from the two centers of Umbrella in America and Europe. As for whether he can deceive Alfred, Luo Guang thinks that his mental state at this time and his love for his sister will be a good breakthrough. Alfred heard Luo Guang's words, but he didn't raise his gun. At close range, Luo Guang's shotgun was more powerful, and his own shotgun was not superior. Moreover, he wanted to know more about his sister's situation at this time, so he asked, "Aren't you the one who attacked the island?" "No, the two people in the hall just now were just prisoners here." "You should have noticed that the person walking at the end was wearing the clothes of the prisoners here." Luo Guang said so. The original plan was to say that both himself and Claire were employees of the island, but it was difficult to explain the scene of Steve saving Claire in prison clothes. "Then why did you walk with those two-legged pigs?" Alfred thought about it for a while and did see the prisoners' clothes. For Alfred Ashford, the staff on the island were his slaves, and those prisoners were just a trivial part of his property. Luo Guang had a simulated conversation like this in his plan, and he answered without hesitation, "I am using their desire to escape to deal with the biological and chemical weapons dropped by the enemies attacking the island. Just before coming in, we had cleared the zombies outside the main gate of your mansion." "Humph, using those two-legged pigs. So you brought those two-legged pigs into my mansion? And kicked the door of my mansion?" "Because I lied to them and said that I was also a prisoner imprisoned on the island, and it was the female prisoner who instigated me to kick the door, and these prisoners are your property, I can't just deal with them casually. I hope that the generous Alfred can forgive my offense." Luo Guang directly pushed the blame to Claire. After all, Alfred would not confront Claire. "Yes, that is our family's property, you are not qualified to deal with it, but you have destroyed the lock of the mansion, which is damaging the family property." Alfred paced back and forth. "No, you are using them. In order not to be exposed, the woman instigated you and you had no choice but to do it. So the woman is wrong. I built this place for Alexia, so this debt should be counted on that woman." Alfred suddenly covered his head and denied his previous thoughts. He lost his previous calmness most of the time due to mental problems. In addition, Luo Guang mentioned the things about Alexia that he had been hiding, which further affected his mental stability. Suddenly, Alfred's constantly distorted face became feminine, making Luo Guang think that the person in front of him was a woman dressed as a man. This was a performance of Alfred playing his sister. He lowered his head and thought, but this method in name only would not make him as smart as his sister. Luo Guang just shot at himself, but he didn't hit himself when he used a shotgun, and the muzzle was also facing the wall next to him. This is a good thing for him, which is indeed consistent with what Luo Guang said before, so Luo Guang should be credible, but there are also many doubts in Luo Guang's words, so I should be more careful, I can only use him, not trust him. Alfred Ashford, who was thinking, looked up at the flattering expression on Luo Guang's face at this time. Alfred switched to the brother state in an instant, and his face was completely feminine, and turned into a face of enjoying arrogance. Luo Guang felt that his expression must be disgusting now, and Jill would definitely punch his handsome face directly when he saw it. However, Luo Guang realized that his current expression made the declining nobleman in front of him look very useful, so he increased his efforts. Seeing Alfred switch back to his brother's state, Luo Guang brought the topic back to the beginning and said, "I overheard the conversation of the person who launched the attack. He confirmed the mission in the radio communication and mentioned your sister's death. Your name is Alexia, and another name was also mentioned, it seems to be Veronica, but I remember your sister. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content." Luo Guang's words were like a bolt from the blue, hitting Alfred's heart directly. Alfred naturally knew that his sister was just faking her death, but was actually injected with the T Veronica virus and put into cryosleep for 15 years in order to fuse with the virus. After hearing Luo Guang's words, Alfred felt that the safety of his sister was more important at this time than whether Luo Guang could be trusted, and a plan to kill two birds with one stone gradually formed in his mind. At this time, Alfred can be said to be alone, and the only secretary loyal to him is also missing at this time, so he is in urgent need of a helper to help him. Alfred did not answer Luo Guang's question, nor did he ask Luo Guang why he initially said that his sister was in danger, since he knew that Alexia was no longer alive. He just kept mumbling something, looking a little distracted. "Turn around and leave. Follow me." Suddenly, Alfred, who was thinking about the plan, remembered that Luo Guang was still waiting for his order, so he turned to give orders to Luo Guang, but ignored Luo Guang after speaking and walked forward on his own. Luo Guang didn't know where the nervous Alfred was taking him, but he was confident that he would shoot before the other person fired, so he cautiously stepped on where the other person walked and followed him. Along the way, Alfred muttered to himself in a low voice as if chatting with someone else. Luo Guang, who had a keen hearing, could not get any useful information from it. If he insisted on extracting information from those words, it would be impossible for Luo Guang to understand how much Alfred missed and loved his sister. After a while, Luo Guang followed the other party through the secret passage of the mansion to the private research room below the mansion. This surprised Luo Guang, because places like the research room often mean that the T. Veronica virus may be stored here. The research room below the mansion is hidden in the Rockford Island underground research base. It was used by Alexia in the past and is now Alfred's private research room. The overall area is not large. Luo Guang began to think about how to confirm whether there was the virus he needed here, and if the virus was here, whether he still needed to keep Alfred alive. While Luo Guang was thinking, Alfred made an action that was beyond Luo Guang's expectation. He took out a test tube from a small freezer and put it into a syringe, and handed it to Luo Guang. Light said, "Rejoice, fool. This is the only T. Veronica virus on the island." Luo Guang showed an expression of disbelief on his face, and then a look of joy on his face. He quickly hung the shotgun on his backpack and respectfully stretched out his hands to receive the vaccine. He really didn't expect happiness to come so quickly. Someone handed it to him when he was dozing off. "Pillow, I actually got the T. Veronica virus I wanted so easily. Veronica, I remember she was the greatest figure in the history of your family." "I didn't expect it to be the name of the virus," Luo Guang said. "Could it be that the Veronica that the people who attacked the island were talking about was the virus?" Alfred's face showed excitement when he heard the first half of Luo Guang's words. He ignored the second half of Luo Guang's words and said happily, "Yes, but soon, this will become history. In a few days, family history will be revealed. The greatest person in the world will always be my beautiful sister. When she wakes up, she will become the god of this world and create a new era." When Luo Guang heard this, he understood a little bit what his next plan was to do. After Alfred finished speaking, he turned around and controlled the console, released the dormant mode of the long-handed monsters in the petri dishes at the Lotford Island research base, and released them onto the ground of Lotford Island and the entire research base. These long-hand monsters were developed based on the Tyrant's production technology. However, in order to control production costs and the difficulty of mass production, the comprehensive capabilities of these long-hand monsters are far inferior to that of the Tyrant. They did not even win the title of Tyrant and were only replaced by Ambry. The company uses it as a mass-produced replacement for Tyrant. Therefore, these long-handed monsters do not have bulletproof straitjackets and are still degraded versions, so the long-handed monsters can be easily eliminated by firearms. But it is enough to deal with the biological crisis on Lotford Island. This long-handed monster is the product of Alfred to cover up why he needs a large number of death row prisoners for experiments, and at the same time hide the Veronica plan and push it to the table for Umbrella Company to see. So Alfred is trying to figure out after this thing. He was obsessed with playing his sister and did not make any subsequent improvements to it. In order to ensure that research funds are used for the Veronica project, these long-hand monsters that were launched on the table paid too much attention to cost control, and the quality of the bodies used in mass-produced long-hand monsters was not good, so these long-hand monsters were cultivated during the process. Physical deformities occur, and the lower limbs degenerate and become unable to run. The original arms also turned into a huge one arm due to lack of energy in the body and other reasons, so the movement and attack of this long-handed monster mainly relied on the unusually strong right arm. At this time, Luo Guang actually saw the figures of Claire and Steve on those monitors. He didn't know how these two people suddenly broke into the research base of Lotford Island. In the end, it depends on you. Alfred turned around, holding a very beautiful, carved Colt Python revolver in his hand, aiming at Luo Guang, who had put away the shotgun because he took over the T. Veronica virus. Luo Guang didn't have any special reaction to this. He looked like he could sacrifice his life for Alfred Yossiford and asked, "Do you want me to inject this virus?" "Yes, this is the virus named after Veronica, the founder of our family. It is an honor for you, a fool, to be able to use this virus." Alfred seemed to have his mind back to normal at this time, but as a noble, he still looked arrogant to the common people. Luo Guang looked embarrassed and said, "I am willing to sacrifice my life for you, but if I inject it here, when I find the mutation, won't you be in danger?" "Hee, don't worry, there is a freezer here, you stay in the freezer before injecting the virus, and I will let you out to complete the mutation when we reach Antarctica." In Alfred's plan, he needed Luo Guang to mutate into a powerful monster and then guard the Antarctic base where Alexia was sleeping. When Luo Guang heard the other party mention Antarctica, he finally understood Alfred's plan. The Colt Python revolver in his hand was prepared to make Luo Guang surrender. "I understand." Since the other party's plan was just what he wanted, Luo Guang didn't say much. He lay in the freezer designated by Alfred, and then gave himself a shot directly, slowly injecting the T. Veronica virus, which was still at a low temperature and low activity, into his body. Seeing Luo Guang so sensible, Alfred laughed and pressed the start button of the cryostat, saying, "You are very good, and there will be a place for you in the new world in the future." The T. Veronica virus combines the DNA sequence of the ancient queen ant, which allows the infected bodies infected with the same virus to build a social structure like ants, and the class division is based on the physical condition of the infected body itself, the result of the virus infection and the degree of virus fusion. The emperor at the top can control all infected organisms, and the superior can convey orders to the subordinate through supersensory perception, so Alfred is so confident that his sister can easily subdue the mutated Luo Guang in the future. Looking at Luo Guang, who has fallen into a deep sleep and been cryogenically frozen, Alfred began to operate the computer to transport the cryostat to the underground airport. Afterwards, Alfred Yossiford seized the time and ran to the underground hangar. "Maybe, there will be another update tonight, maybe meow." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 72. Chapter 71, Fusion of T. Veronica virus. Although he was imprisoned in a freezer, Luo Guang's body had been modified by the T. blood plague virus. Luo Guang, who was in great shape, was much more resistant to cold and heat than the beautiful woman Alexia back then. Therefore, if Alfred froze Luo Guang according to Alexia's standards, Luo Guang would not be frozen. While sleeping, feeling the vibration and tilt coming from outside the freezer, Luo Guang understood that this was the cargo plane he was on taking off. Luo Guang did not rush to fuse the T. Veronica virus injected into his body immediately. Instead, he waited for the aircraft to enter autopilot mode completely and smoothly before letting the system start working. It has been detected that the adapter is in a relatively safe environment, and the T. Veronica virus that entered the adapter's body is still within the controllable range. The analysis of the T. Veronica virus is beginning. Database matching, fitness verification middle. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. The system that has been controlling the stability of the T. Veronica virus injected into the body immediately started pre-fusion analysis after receiving the instructions from the adapter. Analysis progress 69.99%. Because the basis of the T Veronica virus is the same ancestor virus as the T virus, the system analysis was very fast this time, and it was more than half done in a short time. After the analysis, there are traces of 2 viruses in the T Veronica virus. 2 matching viruses were found in the database. The matching degrees are 83.22% and 16.78% respectively. The predicted fitness is 100%. It is speculated that it is suitable for evolution. After the transformation of the T virus and the fusion of the blood plague virus, Luo Guang found that the matching and verification speed of this evolution were much faster than before. The analysis was just completed here, and the matching and verification was completed in the blink of an eye. Luo Guang was about to check the evolution direction selection table, but found a new prompt from the system, saying, it was discovered that the T Veronica virus was artificially synthesized from 2 viruses. Is it necessary to conduct reverse engineering analysis? This was the first time Luo Guang had encountered this situation, but the T virus seemed to be a combination of the ancestor virus and leech gene fragments, but no such prompt appeared in the system that time. No, I seemed to have fallen into a coma at that time. Luo Guang suddenly thought that the evolutionary fusion procedures were different between the first and subsequent ones, so he asked the system, at that time, was there any reverse analysis of the T virus? No, the system explained. The system discovered the leech gene fragment that exists in the T virus, but according to analysis, the function of this part of the gene fragment is mainly to reduce the side effects of the ancestor virus and improve adaptability, but for adapters, it itself the adaptability level is high enough. Strange, isn't the T Veronica virus also a fusion of the ancestor virus and ancient ant gene fragments? Although they are also gene fragments, analysis shows that the ancient ant genes in the T Veronica virus contain part of the virus's gene fragments. After comparison with the ancestor virus, it is speculated that the source of the ancestor virus is that the sun steppe flower was swallowed by ancient ants. The resulting variants. I see, then those leech gene fragments are actually the reason why my initial fitness level changed from S to S. Luo Guang understood. At that time, he had little experience in evolving for the first time. At that time, he really did not expect that in addition to viruses, some of the biological gene fragments he had processed could also be used by him, and he did not let himself use it. Transformed into a leech-like monster. In fact, if Luo Guang had not fallen into a coma at that time and had not chosen to maintain human form in the system settings, one of the choices Luo Guang could have made when he evolved for the first time was to become a leech. It seems that when choosing viruses to absorb in the future, the biological gene fragments fused to the viruses can also provide great reference value, Luo Guang thought. Bringing the topic back to reverse analysis, according to the system manual, Luo Guang knows that the system has the function of reverse analysis of viruses, and this reverse analysis will not affect the evolutionary choices before analysis, but will broaden the direction of the overall evolution. So Luo Guang's natural selection requires reverse analysis. Start reverse analysis, 4.53%, 9.51%. The system immediately started analyzing. This reverse analysis was much slower than the previous ordinary analysis, but Luo Guang did not feel any discomfort in his body at this time, but his body temperature dropped slightly. While the system was being reverse engineered, Luo Guang began to recall some things about the T Veronica virus in the Resident Evil game. Although it was a game before time travel, the characteristics of the viruses that Luo Guang had absorbed so far were basically matching. The characteristics of the T Veronica virus in the game are: 1. Very strong invasiveness to biological cells, 2. Great changes in the body after mutation, 3. Special social structure among infected people, 4. Powerful ecological transformation ability, 5. High degree of tissue assimilation of viruses. Luo Guang thought back and tried to analyze the possible evolutionary directions of the T Veronica virus. The first point of invasiveness actually means that the T. veronica virus will enter the cell and cause cell differentiation, causing the individual organism to undergo severe mutation in a short period of time. Moreover, this invasion is extremely destructive and normal. It's too much for humans to bear. After all, Luo Guang was not a professional, so he could not see what benefits this invasiveness or cell differentiation would bring to him. The second point is the great changes in the body. According to the research report, the T. veronica virus can greatly improve the vitality, strength, rapid repair of body cells, reaction speed, and other attributes of the infected person. It also includes increased body hardness, highly activated cells, faster reactions, enhanced vitality, and enhanced repair ability. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. This point simply and clearly tells Luo Guang a direction to choose. He thought that after absorbing the T. veronica virus, he should be able to defeat Wesker with 1 force and 10 skills. Luo Guang actually felt resentful about being suppressed in the battle with Wesker. It seemed to be a 50-50 fight, but Luo Guang was sure that if he continued to fight, he would only fall further into disadvantage. It was just that his high endurance attribute could keep him invincible. The system can engrave combat skills into the virus so that he can quickly master it, but combat experience can only be made up by himself, and this requires a lot of time and practice. Therefore, if Luo Guang wants to defeat Wesker, absorbing the T. veronica virus is a shortcut. As for the third, fourth, and fifth points, Luo Guang did not analyze them, because these characteristics require a large number of T. veronica virus-infected organisms to play an important role, so Luo Guang felt that these characteristics were useless to him. If he had not been with Jill, he might have been lost on the road of evolution. Luo Guang thought so. In fact, Luo Guang also understood that some claws, spitting venom and other alienations would not necessarily make him a monster, but they could also improve his combat effectiveness. According to the evolution predictions made by the system, excluding the fact that he fell into a coma due to his physical condition when he absorbed the T virus for the first time, so the evolution was relatively conservative. When he absorbed the blood plague virus for the second time, if Luo Guang chose the direction of all fusion, the combat effectiveness after the fusion was completed could at least be increased by about 15%. The simplest example, if he had the ability to generate venom sacs in the blood plague virus, then in the close combat with Wesker, he could directly spray Wesker with poison when he was beaten like a sandbag by Wesker. Luo Guang and Jill have not been together for a long time since they met, but their relationship quickly warmed up during the Raccoon City disaster, and their relationship settled during the rest in a small town in Canada. Jill has unknowingly occupied an important position in Luo Guang's heart, so Luo Guang does not want to take in all the abilities of the virus for the sake of combat effectiveness, and finally make himself look like a ghost. 98.22%, reverse analysis is completed. The ancestor virus and the ancient unknown virus are reversely analyzed in the T. veronica virus. Because both are incomplete, the system completes them according to the virus data matched by the database. All have been completed. A secondary analysis is conducted based on the ability of the T blood plague virus in the body of the adapter. The evolutionary direction analysis is confirmed. Please select the evolution mode for the adapter. Just as Luo Guang was thinking, the reverse analysis was completed. Absorb and merge. Luo Guang felt that the foundation of the T virus was still the best, and the T veronica virus itself was related to the T virus, that is, both viruses were improved based on the ancestor virus. Please choose the ability of the T veronica virus, including the ancestral virus and the ancient unknown virus, to be absorbed by the adapter. A large number of words appeared in Luo Guang's vision. First, highly activate 71.68% of the cells in the adapter's body, accelerate reaction, strengthen vitality, and enhance repair ability, which can greatly improve most of the attributes of the adapter, and at the same time increase the body hardness, predicted to resist 0.22 Lr pistol bullets. The system integrates the first and second characteristics of the T. veronica virus, just in time to improve its own abilities, especially the skin bulletproof function, which can block 0.22 LR pistol bullets, which means that it can also have a certain degree of protection against 9mm bullets. Second, improve the adapter's ability to withstand low and high temperatures. This point was unexpected to Luo Guang, who thought that the T. veronica virus would reduce its activity when it encounters low temperatures. The system answered this question for Luo Guang, and this was the credit of the blood plague virus. Although the blood plague virus has been integrated into the T virus, some of the characteristics and gene fragments of the blood plague virus are still retained, and it unexpectedly reacts well with the T. veronica virus, which makes up for the low temperature weakness of the T. veronica virus and turns it into a new advantage. Seeing the system's explanation, Luo Guang couldn't help but feel scared. Fortunately, Alexia fell asleep early, otherwise if she had obtained the blood plague virus developed by the military in recent years, the world might have been hers long ago. Third, merge with the pheromone ability of the adapter. The pheromone of the adapter can command various biochemical virus-infected organisms based on the ancestral virus. Note, most of the T. veronica virus-infected organisms can only be controlled by suprasensory perception, and the control and command objects of pheromones do not include biochemical weapons or infected organisms with a certain intelligence. If he can't command biochemical weapons and infected organisms with a certain intelligence, then will he be the king of zombies after getting this ability? Luo Guang saw the third point and thought that this skill could be used in many places. The most important thing is that in the subsequent biochemical crisis events, he can also be considered a person to use. 4. Adapters gain the ability to transform ecology. Adapters can decide independently whether to release viruses in their bodies to infect surrounding areas and command infected plants to fight for themselves. Wait a minute, so I am actually a mobile source of the virus now, Luo Guang thought of this question. No, the virus in the adapter's body is exclusive to the adapter and cannot be matched by others. It cannot survive in the air for a long time. It can only infect organisms such as plants for the time being, and depending on the energy in the infected plant, it can only remain 1-10 after about a few minutes. The infected plants that have exhausted their energy will completely wither. The system gave Luo Guang a good answer. Note, the adapted cells will not contain the adapter's virus. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Luo Guang nodded and continued reading. 5 Adapters gain the ability to assimilate similar tissues. Adapters can recover by absorbing the flesh and blood of ancestor virus, T virus, blood plague virus and T. veronica virus infected bodies. 6 Adapters can obtain burning blood, and the blood can be ignited when it comes into contact with the air. These 2 directions were put on the non-selectable list the moment Luo Guang read it. He did not want to eat the flesh and blood of those infected, and the ability to burn blood after it comes into contact with the air was too restrictive. He might also be injured when he was injured, because the blood he shed burned himself. Just as Luo Guang was thinking this, the system prompted, the ability to assimilate similar tissues does not mean that adapters need to eat flesh and blood, as long as there is skin contact. Oh, that's it, it scared me. Luo Guang said this, thinking about the reason why the system issued a prompt. After final thought, Luo Guang saw that this ability had no side effects, unlike burning blood that would cause accidental burning, so he included the 5th point in his choice. In the end, Luo Guang chose all 5 directions except the 6th point. Received after the system checked again to confirm the feasibility of the solution, it started working. Starting to eliminate non-essential gene fragments of T. veronica virus, readjusting and reconstructing T. veronica virus, deletion completed, reconstruction completed. Start commanding the T virus to absorb and fuse the T. veronica virus, progress 10.99%, progress 69.33%. The integration is completed and the final inspection is completed. Please confirm the situation with the adapters. When Luo Guang heard that the fusion was completed, he called up his attribute table. Strength, 1-3 rightward arrow 1-5. Flexible, 1-2 rightward arrow 1-5. Stamina, 1-6 rightward arrow 2-1. Intelligence, 8 rightward arrow 9. Willpower, 11. Luo Guang looked at his current attributes and compared them with before, and said, the introduction shows a significant improvement, but looking at the values, it seems that it is only a small improvement, except for endurance. Because that is relative to ordinary people. At the same time, the higher the value, the more difficult it is to improve, the system explained. But now the strength and agility values are the same, Luo Guang asked, now facing Wesker, I should not be inferior in speed. Based on the analysis of previous combat situations, yes, the system replied rigorously. Hearing the system's answer, Luo Guang smiled ferociously in his heart, thinking that the next time he saw Wesker, he would make him look good, and it wouldn't be too far away, at least before Wesker came up with the Ouroboros virus. Luo Guang used the only T. Veronica virus on Lotford Island, so Wesker's search for the T. Veronica virus on the island will definitely be in vain. At this time, the cargo plane he was riding on was one of the important clues for Wesker to find the T. Veronica virus, so Wesker would definitely follow the cargo plane and follow his footsteps to the Antarctic base. We must give Wesker some color when the time comes. Luo Guang made up his mind and waited for himself to arrive at the Antarctic base. Double update, meow, please vote. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 73. Chapter 72 Monster Nosferatu. The cargo plane landed safely on the runway outside the Antarctic Research Institute base. Alfred Yossiford then opened the hangar door of the Antarctic Research Institute base through the remote control system on the cargo plane, and drove the cargo plane in. Because the freezer requires a lot of power to keep frozen, and the freezer where Luo Guang was locked up was not connected to any power supply at this time, it only relied on its own battery for power supply, so the battery power was already at the bottom. Knowing this, Alfred must hurry to transport Luo Guang, who was injected with the virus, to the designated location, otherwise Luo Guang, who lost his freezing, would mutate and rush out of the freezer to attack himself. Thinking so, the slightly crazy Alfred came to the cargo hold at the rear of the plane. What? Alfred was surprised to find that the special bulletproof glass of the freezer had a big hole, the power indicator light of the freezer did not light up, and Luo Guang inside had disappeared. Are you looking for me? Luo Guang, who did not play hide and seek with the other party, lost his previous flattery on his face, holding his Beretta M92F in his hand and walked out from behind the container behind Alfred. In fact, Luo Guang had escaped from the freezer half an hour ago. At that time, the plane had not landed yet, so Luo Guang took this opportunity to find a hidden place to check the condition of his weapon. After all, it had just been frozen by low temperature, and it became wet because of the heating of the cargo plane after being taken out, so Luo Guang spent a lot of time checking and cleaning the weapon. As for the SPAS-12 shotgun, it may not be a customized version like the Beretta M92F pistol in his hand, and it was not stored close to the body, so Luo Guang found that there were some problems with the parts of the shotgun. In addition, those 12-gauge shotguns were wrapped in plastic shells, and the moisture-proof and waterproof capabilities were not as good as the 9mm metal shells, so Luo Guang finally decided to abandon the shotgun. Luo Guang's appearance did not change at all, and there was no trace of flattery on his face. At the same time, Luo Guang did not look for him after waking up, so Alfred understood a lot of things at once. After all, Alfred was just crazy, not stupid. He noticed Luo Guang's hostility and understood that Luo Guang's flattery might be fake, but he had something more worthy of attention at this time. Why didn't you, a pariah, become a monster? I saw you inject the T. Veronica virus into your body with my own eyes. This is impossible, Alfred said angrily, even my perfect sister can't do it. No one in the world can adapt to and integrate the T Veronica virus so quickly. Alfred thought that Luo Guang perfectly integrated the T Veronica virus in those few hours of freezing. Why can you complete the integration so quickly after injecting the virus? Even my perfect sister needs 15 years to integrate. Alfred recalled the days when his sister was not around and he was alone, opened his eyes wide, and yelled at Luo Guang. Speaking of which, I have to thank you for giving me the opportunity to inject the T Veronica virus. Luo Guang sincerely felt so. Then, in order to pave the way for a line from a movie that he wanted to say, Luo Guang abruptly changed the subject. I don't know why I didn't mutate, and my body didn't feel any difference, but I figured out one thing after injecting the virus. Understand what? Alfred thought that Luo Guang would become rebellious after injecting the T Veronica virus, and when he heard Luo Guang say that his body had not changed, he wondered what Luo Guang had understood. However, Luo Guang was not a talkative villain. Seeing that the other party had taken up the conversation, he pulled the trigger directly and shot Alfred Yassiford in the left chest. In Alfred's unbelievable eyes, Luo Guang took advantage of the other party's consciousness and hurriedly said, "I'm sorry, I want to be a good person." As soon as Luo Guang finished speaking, Alfred seemed to be angry with Luo Guang, staggered left and right, and fell to the ground. Luo Guang fired a few more shots at Alfred's body from a distance of several meters, and then walked over to shoot him in the head again, ensuring that the opponent who died with his eyes open would withdraw from the stage of history from now on. Although it was a bit awkward to deal with Alfred Ashford, he also said the line he wanted to say, which made Luo Guang feel good. Without further ado, Luo Guang forced Alfred's eyelids to close, and then began to search Alfred's body for things. In addition to the revolver, Luo Guang also found a top-level ID card. After Luo Guang found the ID card, he breathed a sigh of relief. He had considered this when he shot again, so he avoided hitting Alfred's palm and eyeball. After all, if the Antarctic Research Institute base wants to use eye masks, finger masks, etc. to open the door, he may have to do something that is not suitable to be said in the book, and he has to open Alfred's eyelids again, which is so disrespectful to the dead. Because he didn't know how to start the plane, Luo Guang directly opened the cargo plane's hatch through the emergency escape device, then left the cargo plane and walked from the aircraft parking area to the depths of the Antarctic Research Institute base, ready to find the place where Alexia was frozen. The center of the Antarctic Research Institute base is a hollow cylinder with spiral stairs built inside the cylinder. There is a door to enter on each floor. The shape of the entire Antarctic Research Institute base gave Luo Guang the feeling that it was a bit like a wooden man used for martial arts training. It wasn't all uneventful along the way. The original staff here were all killed by Alfred and turned into T-virus zombies, becoming the security guards of the base, and have been silently guarding this place. Luo Guang tested his newly acquired ability to command zombies, and the effect was pretty good, but he didn't need those zombies to help him at this time, so he let them climb over the stairs and jump down. Every time he walked down a spiral staircase, Luo Guang would go in to confirm what the room inside was, to ensure that he would not miss where Alexia was. After all, no one stipulated that the most important place must be at the bottom of the base. It was just that the process was a little troublesome, which made Luo Guang regret that he had taken action to solve Alfred in advance. However, there was no way around it. The reason why Luo Guang chose to solve Alfred in advance was that when he was in the cargo hold of the cargo plane, he found that the power of the freezer had been used up in advance. I don't know if the freezer has not been used for too long, and the battery power is much shorter than Luo Guang and Alfred expected. If Alfred saw that the freezer had no power and Luo Guang had not mutated and was lying quietly inside, then Alfred would definitely notice something was wrong and would most likely not bring Luo Guang to Alexia. So Luo Guang could only take action in advance to solve Alfred's hidden danger. Fortunately, Alfred had no other remote means to wake up his sister, nor did he have the mechanism that would automatically start after sensing death, so Alexia was still in a deep sleep. But at the moment of Alfred's death, Alexander Yosiford, who had already transformed into the monster Nosferatu deep in the Antarctic Research Institute base, seemed to sense the death of his offspring and suddenly went crazy. In a short time, he completely broke free from the shackles that had trapped him for 15 years. Luo Guang, who didn't know this, was still exploring the Antarctic Research Institute when he suddenly heard a huge roar. The roar echoed in the hollow cylindrical building, making it impossible for Luo Guang to determine the source of the sound. However, Luo Guang immediately realized that this was not something that a zombie could make, which meant that there was an infected monster in the Antarctic Research Institute base itself. Luo Guang continued to search floor by floor without any weapons. He just used his new ability to command the zombies to make way for him, and then walked to the stairs and jumped down. While searching the negative third floor, Luo Guang saw the roaring monster after turning a corner. The chest of the monster in front of him was cracked like a flower, revealing the beating and abnormally swollen heart inside. There were several huge claws stretched out from behind, and his hands were tightly holding a huge long-handled axe. The monster with its eyes covered by bandages and the huge long-handled axe, Luo Guang had a slight impression of this, but in the game, the monster's hands were tied behind his back. Alexander Yosiford Luo Guang said the name of the monster in front of him. The monster also responded to Luo Guang's words, and the tentacles and claws behind him stabbed directly in the direction of Luo Guang, but all missed. At this time, Luo Guang thought that the opponent's attack speed was too slow, which made Luo Guang feel that he had entered bullet time. Therefore, Luo Guang could dodge left and right with ease and avoid the opponent's attack comfortably. The monster took advantage of Luo Guang's dodging and rushed towards Luo Guang, holding the long-handled axe and chopped at Luo Guang, trying to chop Luo Guang into two halves. Luo Guang quickly stepped back to avoid the axe, and did not rush to attack. Instead, he used the opponent to test and practice his enhanced flexibility, and practiced his dodging skills. While dodging, Luo Guang looked at the monster with a sad expression on his face. As a genetics expert, Alexander Ashford personally extracted the genes of the founder of the family, Veronica Ashford, the first generation of the Ashford family, and created Alfred and Alexia through artificial insemination. So in a sense, Alfred and Alexia are clones without parents. By chance, Alfred learned about his and his sister's life experience in the family secret room of the Antarctic Research Institute. From then on, he began to hate his nominal father Alexander. After Alexia developed the T. Veronica virus, the two captured Alexander and conducted the first human experiment to implant the T. Veronica virus. Unfortunately, the experiment failed. Alexander had a serious rejection reaction, and finally turned into a monster Nosferatu. Did Alexander, who cloned the brother and sister for the glory of the family, really have no feelings for the two brothers and sisters? Luo Guang didn't think so. The attribute of growth was almost familiar, and Luo Guang felt that it was time to send the other party to the road, and took the initiative to attack, directly passing through the opponent's claws and giant axe attacks, and slapped the huge heart on the opponent's chest with one palm. The huge heart was directly smashed by Luo Guang's palm, and Nosferatu, who lost the energy provided by the huge heart, softened his body and knelt on the ground with his knees, and the claw tentacles behind him also fell to the ground. With a clang, the long-handled giant axe fell to the ground. Luo Guang picked up the long-handled axe, controlled the distance, raised it high and chopped at the monster Nosferatu. With the blessing of Luo Guang's power, the long-handled axe was as smooth as a hot knife cutting butter, directly cutting the monster Nosferatu in half, freeing Alexander Axiford, who was imprisoned in this body. As Luo Guang pulled out the long-handled axe, the monster Nosferatu slowly split into two halves, each falling to the sides. With Luo Guang's current strength, it was very easy to swing the long-handled axe, but because the corridor was not spacious, Luo Guang did not take the weapon in the end, but placed it next to Nosferatu, This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Since this is the location of the monster Nosferatu, Alexia should not be on this floor. Luo Guang thought that the two people who hated his father would not let Alexander and himself be on the same floor, so he turned and left. Just after taking a few steps, Luo Guang found a little light coming from behind the trace of the wall chopped by the monster Nosferatu with a long-handled axe. Luo Guang thought that it might be that the wall was chopped through, revealing the room behind, but after Luo Guang looked around, he found that there was no door on the wall of this corridor. Out of curiosity, Luo Guang broke the wall with the long-handled axe and walked in. As if it had its own induction, as soon as Luo Guang entered, the room, which was originally only slightly bright, suddenly became brighter. In the center of the room wall, a large screen hanging on the wall suddenly started up, and a handsome man appeared on the screen, with stubble and golden hair, with the charm of a mature man. Luo Guang noticed that the date December 25, 1983 was written on the lower right corner of the screen, which meant that the content on the screen should be a video prepared in advance. I am Alexander Asiford. If anyone sees this message, it means that my code name, Veronica project has completely failed, and my daughter's own Veronica virus project has probably reached the final stage. I am afraid that my only daughter will continue to be obsessed with the research of the Veronica virus and lose herself, and I have a hunch that she is ready to cross the bottom line of a researcher who experiments on her own body. Because I know my daughter, her dream is to release something into this world, but this is wrong. Anyone who sees this message, I don't care if you are on the side of Umbrella, please help her. This room has the only thing I have prepared to help her. There was a noisy sound in the picture, and Luo Guang could see the tangled and bitter expression on the other party's face. Alexander stood up and said, "My daughter and son are coming to catch me. I wish good luck to those who see the message." After that, Alexander reached out to turn off the video, and the darkroom returned to silence. Then appeared on the screen was the introduction of a weapon, the anti-B.O.W linear particle blaster. Speaking of which, the plot of Veronica, especially the Antarctic part, is really confusing, and there are bugs and book violations in many places. For example, in the game setting of Code Veronica, Alexander was captured by the brother and sister for virus experiments around March 1983, but in the Dark Chronicles game, the time in the video left by Alexander is December 25, 1983, which is really a Christmas gift for his daughter. Anyway, the Antarctic plot of Code Veronica has many problems, so I just changed it.